Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another exciting evening of thick and fast racing action in the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly sponsored by both Musical Money Limited and the Old Git Racing Team. That's right, we're back for another evening of furious racing action in our Skip Barber Formula 2000 machines, or as we love to refer to them, the Skippies. And on tonight's agenda, we've made our way to mainland Europe. We made our way all the way from the United Kingdom then to Norway, and with it to the country's premier racing circuit, it is none other than the Rudskogen Motorsenter. Located in the municipality of Rakkestad, this circuit is 2.02 miles in length, and whilst it may sound short, we can promise you one thing, it is not a circuit to be underestimated. With its current layout designed by Hermann Tilke, yes, that man, the premier designer of circuits around the world, particularly when it comes to all things Formula 1, it is a circuit that weaves and winds its way through the local Norwegian forestry, and with it creates a circuit where it's an absolutely brilliant technical test of our driver's ability to take on sweepers, esses sequences and also hairpins, but also keep in mind it's plenty wide for 2 to 3 wide car racing action. And it also does have a couple of rather extended straights. Add it all together, and this is going to be one of those circuits where consistency is key, but will our drivers have the opportunity to actually focus on their consistency when they've got to keep an eye on those that are batting around them? Well, that we'll have to see. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on YouTube, and this broadcast being brought to you live on Paul Walsh Productions at YouTube, and in the content if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be covering all your racing action as this season unfolds. But as we make our way into this pair of rounds, round 7 and 8. What is our schedule for tonight, I hear you ask? Well, there it is on screen. And as we can see, it is as follows. In Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. In approximately 14 minutes' time, we'll be making our way into our qualifying session, or drivers out there giving it their all to go for pole position. That'll be 10 minutes in length at the most, starting at 7:45 this evening, after which we'll then be making our way straight onto the grid for the round 7 sprint race. That'll be 20 minutes in duration, and that'll be due to get underway at approximately 5 to 8 this evening, after which the dust will settle only for a brief moment before we make our way back out there once again for our round 8 feature race, adding an extra 33% onto the racing distance in total, or actually 50% there. My maths wasn't too great on that one, was it? But as our drivers make the way back out, it'll be a 30-minute race, and that's set to get underway at 8:20, after which we'll be having our post-round interviews as always. But as we get ready to go racing today, well, what's the story then after our first 3 weekends in the United Kingdom, and how do the standings stand? Well, let's take a look back firstly at where we've raced. We started off in the UK for our first 6 rounds, and we began the story at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuits. That was rounds 1 and 2. Then we made our way northward to the Oulton Park National Circuit in rounds 3 and 4. And last time out, we made our way even more northwest to the Premier Northwestern Racing Circuit in England, and that's none other than the Oulton Park International Circuit. And what a round of racing we had there, in the fact there were plenty of surprises, and the home hero of Adam Tomkins, it all went wrong for, despite the fact they looked sensationally quick in qualifying when it came to the racing in the sprint race, where it was the battle of the 2 Adams all the way from start to finish, and they built up a queue of the best part of 9 cars behind them, but contact between the 2 drivers right towards the end of the race saw Adam Miles in survive at the expense of Tomkins, albeit it was adjudged to be a racing incident, all things considered, but the racing was so close between them, it was only going to go one way. And then in the feature race, well, for Tomkins, it wasn't even 1 lap completed before it all ended up in the barrier after a mid-pack incident cost him the opportunity to carry on. But still, where Tomkins struggled as the home hero, there were many other heroes out on the circuit, including none other than Steff Hermann, whose run of podiums came to a close, and he didn't quite make it another win. In fact, he's yet to pick up a win this season, but he's definitely continued to run a 5 out of 6 podiums in the round so far, and that's why he's your championship leader, as we'll see shortly. But we also had wins for both Adam Miles and Brian Kelly in the races there, with Brian Kelly putting off an incredible piece of strategy in order to make it work in the feature race. But today is the 11th of January, and let's see what our drivers can do here at the Rudskogen Motorsenter with the 3-lap average qualifying session, as you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, as we move back to the session format we saw right at the start of the season. And let's talk a little bit about our circuit then. And as we can see, in terms of our circuit, the Rudskogen Motorsenter, we're racing on the full layout of it. Located in the municipality of Rakkestad in the Østfold region of Norway, we're consisting of the best part of 14 corners, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely brilliant track maps that come with it that really help us understand these circuits and bring them to life. But as our drivers roar the way on around here, what they'll find is there's 2 long straights which open up the opportunity for overtakes in the slipstream, and that's the run all the way out to the final corner down towards turn number 1, and also the run from turn number 2 all the way downhill in towards turn number 3, with the lowest point of the circuit being at turn number 3, and the highest point of the circuit being all the way up at turn number 2. Indeed, it really feels as though they're going all the way down to the very bottom of Norway before then making their way back uphill. Although, ironically, this circuit located in southern Norway, well, the southernmost circuit, so that way it's open for the longest period of time over the course of the year. What with Norway being located towards the very top of the northern hemisphere, and therefore having quite exaggerated winter and autumnal seasons. There's a little bit of trivia for you. But as our drivers head on around here, they'll note the fact there's plenty of sweeping bends, such as turns 2, 3, 4, and also the run of turns 13 into 14, but also they'll need to negotiate esses of turns 5 through to 8, and also some very tricky hairpins, such as that at turn number 10. But all these corners offer overtaking opportunities for those who are brave to do so, and we look forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do before we consider one other thing that a circuit map cannot show you, and that is the rather interesting elevation changes around here, with many of these corners being blind at their apex. As we come into this round, we talked about our scene, but how do the standings stand coming into the round as well? Well, let's start off with your top 15 Drivers' Championship standings. And as we can see, Steff Hermann is your leader on 142 points, ahead of the 135 of Adam Tomkins, who sits right behind. Indeed, it's close between these drivers, but we look forward to seeing how exactly things may shape up as the rounds continue to go on. But Hermann has taken control of the championship lead, and as he does so, well, right now, it does seem as though that lead is continuing to go forward. In fact, it does seem as though our standings might be a little bit out of date. Let's just see if we can give them a quick refresh, ladies and gentlemen, and they may just be slightly erroneous there, or in fact, we might be seeing what is our drop scores already being accounted for. Just bear with us a brief moment, as they are just being refreshed on screen there. We do apologise for that. But in fact, yes, those are the correct points with drop scores being accounted for, and it is Steff Hermann there on 142 points ahead of Adam Tomkins by the best part of 7, where Daniel Ortuga there sitting in 3rd place. And then we do have Geoff Randall sitting in 4th at the moment as he looks to continue to try and move his way forward, with Neil Garner completing that top 5 ahead of Nathan Wade, with Marcus Byfeld, Gordon van den Bergen, Remco Placia and Brian Kelly completing that top 10, and Brian Kelly of course bringing home that major win. And well, what a win it was for him, and he'll be hoping for even more today as he continues on his story over the course of the season. And well, as we do look outside of the top 10, Peter Surpanky ahead of George Mattock, with Dennis Johansson, Tom Payne and Ludwig Sauer completing the top 15. And then further afield, we do have round off that top 30, Titus de Jong ahead of Chris Wayne, with Christopher Geros ahead of Terry McGrauther, and James McRitchie completes your top 20. Marcus Dorner sits in 21st ahead of Simon Wareham, with Joshua Harley, Klaus Biederman, Paul Smith first, Frederick Neptune, David Kennedy, Pedro Marimon Cladera, Benjamin Harris and Daniel Salmon completing your top 30 of the standings. But indeed, nobody's quite been able to break away so far, and we've still got even more to come as this season rages on. So, a quick reminder then of the rules before we go racing, because the rules do slightly change from week to week, particularly when it comes to our qualifying session. In terms of car setup, this is an open setup series, and car fuel loads are restricted still to 47% for all race day sessions. Indeed, that rule change came in as of what was Oulton Park, and it's staying with us at the moment. It seems to have worked out exactly as we expected it to, with regards to the fact it narrowed the pit window in the feature race. In terms of qualifying, a 3-lap average is going to be used today, and that means exactly what it says. Our drivers will have a closed session where they all take to the circuit and an isolated instance of the circuit, so nobody else is around them. They've all got Rudskogens themselves. But they have the outlap and 3 flying laps in order to set their time. However, their time is not based on 1 lap, it's based on all 3 of their laps, the average of which will set their final qualifying time. So this is the qualifying session, much like a Brands Hatch, where you need to nail all 3 laps. You can't afford a single off track, as otherwise that will invalidate 1 lap, and immediately it invalidates your entire qualifying session. However, get all 3 together, then it's about who was the most consistent. Of course, lap number 1 will be the slowest lap typically, because you've still got slightly cold tyres. Lap number 2 should be a bit faster as the fuel's burnt out the car and the tyres are up to temperature. And lap number 3, meanwhile, should be the fastest lap of them all. But who can put the fastest laps together across all 3? That's what we'll see. Race-wise, the races shall commence by a standing start, as is a tradition of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, with 1 fast repair being available in each race should our drivers need it. A drive-through penalty shall be awarded at 17 instant points. Should they get to 21, they will be disqualified. And the grid for the feature race, as always, shall be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint, albeit the top 15 finishing positions shall be inverted. So that always creates a bit of excitement and drama, because what it means in layman's terms is the winner of the sprint race, they will start 15th on the grid for the feature, and we work our way downwards through the finishers of the sprint race to the driver who finished in 15th, and that individual, they start on pole for the purposes of the feature race, and those who finish 16th and downwards, well, they will be starting exactly where they finished in the sprint race. They don't get any switching around on the grid. There is 1 mandatory pit stop we should point out in the feature race, and drivers must refuel in that one, but changing tyres is entirely optional and normally not necessary. So that's a quick recap of where we are and all the rules, regulations, everything between, but we want to see racing. So let's make our way back to circuit side, and we do so in good time, as Adam Miles right now, well, as he makes his way on around here, he is the fastest of everybody in this practice session. And as he heads on up the hill, he does have what is a very close counterpart in the form of Nathan Wade. Not on screen with him as he makes his way on past there, the golden machine of one of his rivals instead. And I do believe the golden machine there following behind him is none other than Gordon van den Bergen. In fact, no, that's Gordon van den Bergen a little bit further behind. How could I forget the Phantom machine? In fact, that was the company there following miles around of Marcel de Hint. Well, got it right eventually. And the number 04 driver makes his way onto another lap. albeit the hint all the way down to 29th at the moment. He's currently the last driver of those who've got laps set in this practice session, but I think he's just trying to build himself up to a bit of speed. But speaking of getting ourselves up to speed, or drivers getting themselves up to speed, we do have some debutants here today, including, he caught the broadcast last time out, and he's so eager to get on the grid, he immediately jumped into the official Discord. More on that a little bit later in terms of how you can get on the grid if you want to, if you're sat there right now thinking that this looks fun and you want to be a part of it. And we promise you, ladies and gentlemen, it is a lot of fun. And if you've never raced open wheel formula, well, much like in real life, the Skip Barber Formula 2000 car is a brilliant car to get yourself into open formula racing. Indeed, we would love to have you on the grid, and that's exactly where Mariano made his way on last time. He was tuning in at Oulton Park. He absolutely loved it and wanted to be on the grid. And well, I do apologise to Mario because I didn't respond to his YouTube comment, but he found the Discord, got his way in, and immediately we said, yep, Mario, get yourself on the grid today, and he's going to be debuted in the number 13. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do, as he's already finding a bit more pace. We also do have a few other new drivers here today, including none other than Neil Barber, who is back on the grid again. I think he has previously been on the grid, in fact. Albeit, where is Neil Barber at the moment? There he is, in the very silver and shiny car. Indeed, right now you could say that's why the Silver Arrows machine's there, although copyright pending from Mercedes. But the point being, right now, he really is the Silver Surfer making his way on through. And well, right now, if Marv won't knocking on my door trying to get copyright for this broadcast, I don't know what's going wrong with the world of lawyers, as he comes charging over the hill there. And we look forward to seeing what Bamboo is going to be able to do in the 45. We also do have another two newcomers as well, including Frankie D. And well, Frankie's currently parked up in the pit lane. Can we see his car? It's a little bit shy, but there it is. We finally found it, and he's parked up and all set to go in the number 18, albeit driver out the car at the moment. So therefore, he's just having a bit of a breather and perhaps looking at some of the data. He's currently your 20th fastest in practice. And lastly, we do have new to the grid as well, none other than Mark Beckhouse, who currently is not in this car, and he's not in the pit lane either. But you'll see Beckhouse out there in the number 44, and we'll show you him when we do go into qualifying. Now, we should point out, just a quick correction very quickly, with regards to the championship standings. They were erroneous. They were showing you the standings going into Oulton Park a little bit earlier in this broadcast. We're going to look into that for next time, so we do apologise. However, one thing that has not changed is the fact that it is Steff Hermann who's your championship leader, but he is currently 52 points ahead of Adam Tomkins. Where is Steff Hermann, I hear you ask? Well, Hermann at the moment is all the way down in 23rd, and he's currently in the pit lane being serviced, albeit he's out the car and they've put the car behind the barricades. Therefore, we can't see it, as that's Simon Wareham there going a bit too deep at turn number 3. He gets it back together just about in the nick of time, does Wareham, but that's a bit of an easy mistake to make there. And he decides in the end to park up, and I think he's now just going to wait before he goes moving on forward. He's got a couple of drivers coming on through, including behind him there. I believe that is going to be none other than the car making its way on past of Roddy van der Meijden, and in the end Wareham lets him go. But as Roddy van der Meijden makes his way up the hill, serpentine his way on through. He's currently 16th of our drivers in this practice session, and I think he'll be hoping there's a bit more time out there for him to try and improve, given the fact that we normally see him towards the bottom end of the top 10, if not just outside of it. And I think he'll feel as though this is a bit uncommon to be all the way down in 16th place. But then again, his practice is just one part of the story. When they go racing, that is a completely different part of the story as well. Now, as you do tune in tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching right now, I do know there's a few of you out there. Don't be shy. Feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing, whether you had a good weekend, and if not, we'll be here to turn this broadcast for what will be an opportunity to turn your frown into a smile. We'll turn that frown upside down, and indeed, we're not too far away from going into the qualifying session. And when we do, well, we'll have to wait and see who's going to be able to put together 3 very consistent and strong laps, because that's what matters. But, of course, and keep in mind, with regards to the championship, we said the fact that Steff Hermann is ahead of Adam Miles, and in terms of who's in third, it is Geoff Randall who's secured that absolutely incredible pair of double podiums. And here he is, Geoff Randall, right now, making his way into turns 1 and 2, and as he makes his way from left into right, the 107 driver here right now, well, he's riding it high. He picked up his first 2 podiums of the season last time out at what was the Oulton Park circuit, and whilst he was a little bit too far back perhaps to take the win in the feature race, I think that second place definitely felt like a win. He absolutely nailed it on strategy in what was race number 2, and he's now building some title momentum. But will it be enough to see him on pole today, or anybody else on pole, other than the man who's normally taken a pole position over the course of the season, and that's been one of the 2 Adams of Miles or Tomkins? Well, Tomkins isn't here today, it's just Adam Miles, but either way, it's time to head to qualifying. So qualifying is go, go, go. 10 minutes starts to tick away as quickly as that. And as all our drivers start to make the way out of the pit lane, well, who is going to be putting themselves right in the prime seat for pole position? Remember, this is a 3-lap average qualifying session. What that means is that for all the drivers, they get 3 laps after their out lap, and they've got to string all 3 together. They cannot have an invalid lap. They don't get any extra laps. So therefore, if they invalidate 1 lap, that means their qualifying session is entirely invalid, and they'll be starting from the very back of the field. Think back to Brands Hatch, where we saw several drivers seem to struggle a little bit, whereas others really thrived. And one of the big names who thrived at Brands Hatch in such a setting was none other than Daniel Atuga, who I don't think has been able to make the journey here today to Rudskogen Motorsenter, and therefore, well, we're definitely going to be seeing a new name at the very top with regards to a 3-lap average session, but we'll have to see. We also do see the machine here, the 44 of Mark Beckhouse, who is on the grid making his debut today. And his name is familiar. I think he has raced in this series previously, but perhaps he's taken a bit of a hiatus after a previous season and then made his way on back. But either way, if it's his first time on the grid, welcome to the grid, Mark. And if he's coming back after an extended hiatus, welcome back. See, we've covered off both eventualities there. But right now, we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the number 44. But from introducing Mr. Beckhouse, is qualifying important? Many of you may be wondering. The answer: yes and no. It really depends around here, because the thing about Rudskogen, it is a circuit which does really excel for cars that are lower pace. You wouldn't normally see GT3s race around here, for example. In fact, if I keep in an open wheel setting, you wouldn't see Formula 1 race around the Rudskogen Motorsenter. It is too small of a circuit, and indeed, for Formula 1 cars, with all the air and downforce they have, they would absolutely tear around here at an incredibly rapid rate of knots. Meanwhile, go to, say, Formula 2. Perhaps not Formula 3, that's probably as far as you would take it in terms of the pace of the open wheel car. But if you go to, say, Formula 4, alternatively to the Skippies or the Skip Barber Formula 2000s, those are the cars which are really made for the circuit. Cars that are not really pushing any higher than about 110 miles an hour at top speed. They don't have too many gears. They don't have too much aero either. They just have enough in order for a driver to really get a feel for what it's like to race an open wheeler, but not too much to the point that the car feels too planted or on rails. And that means around here you have the excitement factor, or the fact that the slipstream is quite powerful around here. You can get a significant draft either through the corners or even on the stretches, such as the run down towards turn number 1 or the run from turn number 2 all the way into 3. However, with all that, of course, with that dirty air, it'll continuously bring our drivers close, and it's even the short stretches, such as the run there from turn 8 into 9, which Dennis Johansson is demonstrating on screen. That short straight is enough to get a driver who is behind him to get close enough to look for a move into the hairpin. That's why this circuit is absolutely perfect for these machines, because it offers the opportunity for drivers to stay close all the way through. So that's why qualifying is perhaps not as critical as it could be, because the other thing we haven't talked about is the fact that with all these corners here and the amount of road width, a natural, what is design feature of any Hermann Tilke design circuit is the fact you normally have enough road width for at least 2 or 3 large size open wheel racing machines, typically Formula 1 cars, because that's what Hermann Tilke is known for designing circuits for. Well, therefore, you've got plenty of overtaking space on this circuit. There's some places you won't go for an overtake, for example, such as into what would be the run of turns 5, 6, 7 and 8, diving only normally up the inside into turn 8 if you've got the overspeed there, but otherwise for the most part you can battle anywhere around here, and that's what we're going to look forward to seeing what our drivers be able to do with that knowledge. But the laps are coming on in from our drivers little by little, and as we look to our number 2 driver here, Martin van Ikkelen, who enjoyed a good day at Oulton Park, to be fair. He had a lot of fun out there, no doubt about it, and he got stuck right into the fighting all the way from start to finish. But with that, for Martin, it definitely was one of those days whereby one of his highlights of the season, and those results were a 7th and 3rd in the end. After that 3rd place in qualifying, the sprint race, he got elbowed down the order a little bit, but in the feature race, he definitely made up for it, and he did keep Geoff Randall honest all the way to the very end, and I think that's why he was so happy about it. But as he tiptoes his way around right now, one driver who really did impress in practice earlier this afternoon was none other than Kevin Budgeon. He was your 10th fastest, and given his pace that we saw at Oulton Park wasn't quite there, I think for Kevin this is a circuit that definitely seems to be aligning with his preferred driving style. He has proven to be a driver so far on his return to the grid at Oulton Park, because remember, he took a break for multiple seasons and then made his way back onto the grid. He proved himself to be a very capable driver, but I think just finding his feet. But I can tell you one thing, that memory has not gone away for Budgeon, and we're very happy to see it. But as our lap times start to come in from our drivers here, well, we've had 2 laps already for Marcus Byfeld, and I believe these averages right right now that you're seeing on screen are the result of the out lap plus also 2 other drivers' laps. So we will see another lap added on there, as meanwhile we need to bring you an on-board lap with one of our drivers, and here it is, ladies and gentlemen, with Peter Suopanki. As the old Git Racing team driver makes his way into turn 1, braking at the 50 board, trail braking in, and down from 4th to 3rd to 2nd as he elongates turn number 2. It never seems to end, it takes plenty of apex curve, and then it does, and it's full throttle now all the way down towards turn number 3. Now here, it's going to be a long downhill descent, but as he gets ready to drop in here, it's all about muscle memory at this point. You've got no real brake marker to work with, other than the 150 metre boards on your right-hand side, but those will be blocked in the race. And as he makes his way on through, 4th then down to 3rd, drifting his way up into 4th in terms of the corner, and drops to 2nd gear. Now as he makes his way up the S's into 3rd gear, he goes, upshifting nice and early there, so that way he's got a lot more traction up the hill, and going from left into right into left, and now over the crest, and it's a double left here at turns 7 and 8 as he drops to 1st gear, nice and tight to the apex curb, and now back on the throttle and going down the hill through the curvature at 9 and in towards turn number 10. Now looking to his right hand side for his brake mark, he'll brake there just after the 50 metre board, trail braking all the way down to 1st gear and back up the hill, immediately attacking the throttle there, using the camber of the road to his advantage, and he's got plenty of width. Now through the kink of 11 and onto the brakes quickly for turn number 12. Here it's about dropping down to 2nd, chuck the car in, and so as long as you keep 2 wheels in the white lines, you're okay. Now it's turn 13, flat out in there, and now onto the brakes, straight line into turn number 14, and much like turn number 2, it continues to go. Wait for it, unwind the steering wheel, and blast your way out the corner. And for Peter Suopanki, that was a smooth lap, but does it make him a smooth criminal to the top 10? The answer is no. It's going to be currently 12th for Suopanki on a 34.052 on his average. Marcus Byfeld, meanwhile, is the fastest of everybody, and well, he's got no more laps available to him, but that's impressive there from Byfeld, and he puts himself pole by 11 thousandths over Steff Hermann. Meanwhile, Mark Beckhaus on his debut round, well, I can tell you right now, Beckhaus is no slouch in the car. He's put himself all the way in 3rd, 3 tenths off a pole, but that's impressive. Brian Kelly, meanwhile, has gone 4th in this qualifying session, and well, here's he decides to park up. We also look to George Mattock, and Mattock makes his way through turn number 12 in towards 13, and as he does so, well, he right now has got 1 more corner to go. He's down in 19th place, but something tells me this is not representative of what Mattock wants to bring to the table, and as he comes towards the end of this session, where's he going to be? As Adam Miles sets the time screen to light, a 32.963 is his average, and Mattock, meanwhile, does not improve. So George Mattock will be starting the day in 13th place as Adam Miles takes pole position here, following up from pole position previously at Oulton Park. It's a 32.963 for him, a 10th faster than Marcus Byfeld. What a session from him, but what a session from so many drivers, ladies and gentlemen, and Miles in the end able to stay 1 step ahead, but the key intrigue here is the fact that it's not a sizable gap, and I can imagine that's going to mean when we do go racing, it is going to be incredibly close between all these drivers. But as we say hello to Adam Miles there in the YouTube chat, it points out the time tower is actually showing the lap times rather than the averages there. Well, it does seem as though our time tower deciding then perhaps to be a little bit erroneous, and well, with that we might see a bit of a shuffling with regards to our drivers' times when we do make our way onto that grid. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. AJ Miles there. I presume that is Adam. If not, then it is a very coincidental person, but I hope you're doing well, good sir, and all set for the racing. So our timing tower being a little bit cheeky, but as our drivers cool things on down, we've only got a minute or so to go before we head to the grid. We've got Tom Payne coming towards the timing line, and he is going to be starting 28th at best by looks of things on a 35.915. He has not been able to find any more time out there, although he has made a personal best out of it, but it's not moved him any further ahead of Mariano, who'll be starting 27th just up the road by 4 tenths at least. But we have Chris Wayne. He's the only driver yet to set a lap. And in fact, I think Wayne's opting to start from the very back of the field because there's been some technical issues with the car. And that might be a bit of a shock there. We do have to say a bit of a sad announcement. The fact that we're not going to be seeing on the grid today Neil Gardner, unfortunately. Now, do keep in mind that Neil is based all the way over in the Oceania region. Well, due to time zones and also work commitments, unfortunately, we won't be seeing Neil on the grid today. And I suspect we may not be seeing him for what will be a few few rounds this season, but Neil being able to make certain rounds, and I believe where he is, the time zone switches are coming into effect in, I think it is Australia. I'm sure Neil will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the fact that we've had some time zone switches out there already is a sign of why he can't make it. And Adam Tomkins, as we mentioned earlier, not on the grid for these rounds due to a combination of personal commitments, but he's doing okay. We're just missing him, as we're not going to miss the fact that we're heading to the grid for round number 7. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our first race of the day. In round 7 of Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, brought to you by Musical Money and Old Kit Racing Team, it is Adam Miles who has taken pole position in the end, with his average being a 33.408. Steff Hermann will join him on the front row, only a 10th behind there, the privateer and championship leader, with Marcus Byfeld starting in 3rd. It's Geoff Randall, 4th on the grid, the Old Kit Racing Team driver, and he'll be followed up by Nathan Wade and none other than Brian Kelly, who continues to move further forward. Remco Pleisier begins the day in 7th place for Raging Turtle Racing ahead of Mark Beckhaus, with the German driver then followed up by Dennis Johansson, who has one of his weaker qualifying points of the season, and he's ahead of Titus de Jong, who rounds off your top 10 for Raging Turtle Racing. In 11th, it's going to be Gordon van den Bergen for Sickhead Racing ahead of George Matuk, with Klaus Biedermann in 13th ahead of Christopher Gerros Jr., and then it'll be Frankie D starting 15th today ahead of Roddy van der Meeden, with the Dutchman then followed up by the Flying Finn of Peter Suapanki, and then we do have Martin van Eckelen starting in 18th. Ludwig Sauer and Kevin Budgen round off your top 20, and outside that top 20 we do have none other than in 21st place Simon Wareham with Neil Bamber alongside him. Behind the two Britons it will then be the Swede of Frederick Neptun ahead of David Elliott, with the Irishman giving way to Marcel de Hint and Tom Payne. There'll be Mario Mariano starting 27th on his debut ahead of Chris Wayne, and also no lap time set via the average for Jesus Cabal nor for Joshua Harley. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult day in the office for those three as they try to come through the field. But for all our drivers, they're almost all set and ready to go. The mist is slightly coming over here in Norway. You'd expect that in winter time, of course, but it's going to be a cool day here as everyone sits and gets ready to go racing on this grid. But as they're all eager to do so, we are not too far away from going green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen. And Adam Miles will be the man who tries to get the run in towards turn number 1. But will he be able to do so as we briefly lose him? He rematerialises. Well, I think all's okay there for Miles. The grid is set, and here come the lights. So it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. But Adam Miles is just stuck there. He stalls, and with stalling means that Steff Hermann gets the launch here. Adam Miles falls back down the order, and as they all roll the way away, Miles is going to fall all the way down into the clutches of the bottom end of the top 15. So Hermann leads into turn number 1 as all the field now staggers its way on through. Well, there's a shock as Mark Beckhaus fights hard with Remco Pleisier straight from the outset, and coming out of turn number 2, they now make the way all the way down towards turn number 3. It's a long run here for the first time, but goodness me, there's been some surprises already as Pleisier immediately trying to come back here versus Beckhaus, coming down into the braking zone. What's going to play out here? It's going to be 2 by 2 for many a driver. It looks like the Raging Turtle Racing drivers there are Pleisier and Johansson together. In fact, Dennis Johansson not part of the team there. We're getting confused, but Titus de Jong was right behind. Titus de Jong having to battle as that's 3 wide up the hill. It's going to be right around the outside of Johansson to the inside as Beckhaus in the end puts himself right in between the two, threads the needle, and Beckhaus holds on to that 6th place, and Johansson does clear Pleisier, who in the end could not quite make that work out, and on that inside in towards turn number 5 he immediately had to back out, as otherwise he would have ended up into what had been a bit of an incident. But meanwhile Peter Suapanki, he's had a bit of a slow start. He's dropped down to 18th as he fights with Frankie D, looking around the outside. The number 18 driver still there, and Suapanki in the end can't quite find a way through. But heading over the rise right now, it's going to be further fighting with Kevin Budgen. Well, he's starting 20th, but he's fighting right now for 19th. Ludwig Sauer is the man who's trying to beat round the outside of turn number 12. That's not going to be easy. And in fact, Neil Bamber looks up the inside, but not in the nick of time. And in the end, falls back in line. Looking further back, Jesus Cabal fighting with Tom Payne and also Frederick Neptun. But these drivers right now all getting very eager to fight each other as they come towards the end of the first lap. So after 1 lap of racing, it's Steff Hermann who leads ahead of Marcus Byfeld, followed by Geoff Randall. That's your top 3. Nathan Wade sits in 4th ahead of Brian Kelly, followed by Dennis Johansson. Then it's Mark Beckhaus in 7th ahead of Remco Pleisier. Adam Miles and Titus de Jong complete your top 10. And Adam Miles, the man who stalled it on the grid, he had a very slow start, and now he's got himself back into the top 10, but he's got more fighting to come. Speaking of fighting here, we'll look to Klaus Biedermann. who finds himself right in the thick of the fighting versus Gordon Vandenbergen and also Christopher Garris Jr. And right now Biederman holding his line down to turn number 3. Oh, goodness me, it's just coming a little bit loose there for Garris Jr., but gets it together in the end. And Biederman loses the rear of the car. It goes round. Does he go all the way round? I think he does. He finally makes his way to the grass. And in the end, well, it's difficulty for him, but my good Lord, how he managed to keep that going for so long sideways and held on to it. Well, Klaus Biederman doing a fantastic job there, showing car control, but unfortunately hitting that Armco barrier. He will have to take the car into the pits within the next 3 laps. He has picked up damage. Meanwhile, there's more fighters as the car around the corner of Vandenbergen. The Phantom machine goes for a spin, and Vandenbergen emulates what happened to Biederman only moments to go, but does it only 4 corners later. Goodness me, and well, thankfully, he ended up ejecting himself out to the outside of the circuit. Otherwise, that come back across, I don't think anybody would have been able to react. But meanwhile, Neil Bamber fighting hard, and Bamber's on the move, so is Jesus Cabal. And Cabal, who struggled in qualifying and couldn't get 3 laps together to create an average. Well, right now, Jesus Cabal's gone from 29th already to 19th, and fighting here with Bamber in towards this corner, where he might just be able to make this move happen, and we'll see what he's going to be able to do. And the answer is going to be yes. Cabal can get ahead, and the Spaniard continues to move forward as Martin van Eckelen looks behind him right now, and we jump on the nose cone here of Eckelen as he heads onwards, but in towards turn number 1. Well, right now, the privateer, oh goodness me, almost went wide there at 1 and almost had to skip turn number 2. That would have been a bit of a hazardous moment, as Vandenbergen and Biederman have both made the way into the pit lane, I'm pleased to say. But right now, Van Eckelen on a charge here, but can he get closer? Win this draft, he's not going to be able to, because everybody's got the slipstream of the guy or girl in front at the moment. So that means it's all equal here, as that's going to be a move made by Jesus Cabal, looking up the inside of Ludwig Sauer in towards turns 3 and 4. Can he get it done here? If not, it's now going to be the switchback sequence of quarters. They go from right into left. Cabal's going to look around the outside. He's not backing down, Jesus Cabal, as they go on up the hill here. It's absolutely superb fighting between them. He's going to try and go round the outside here, and Cabal doing an absolutely brilliant job of this, but I don't think he's going to have enough road and time to do it. And in the end, Sauer keeps it at bay, but Cabal right now, he's definitely sending the message, which is where he qualified is not where he plans to finish. And well, I don't blame him here as he looks down the outside again at Sauer, and Sauer right now shoving the cork in the bottle as much as possible and trying to prevent the places from flowing to the number 6 driver. But Cabal, now he's got the bit between his teeth. He's thirsty for positions, and right now I think he's hoping that he can cause them to all pour out of the bottle. But meanwhile, looking at Frankie D, and well, Frankie D's having a great time there, battling towards the bottom end of the top 15. Remembering, of course, 15th place. If you can't win the race, 15th may be the place to go to if you want to start right at the front of the field for the feature race. So there's always a bit of a story around what is 12th through to 16th position. You normally see a lot of drives fight in those places, but right now for Kevin Budgen and Frankie D and Roddy van der Maiden, these 3 drivers definitely getting right into the thick of the fighting, as Budgen right now holding van der Maiden behind him, and D's been given a little bit of breathing room. Now, as we do say hello to Talkie T there, and I wonder if that might be a reference to Talkie the Toaster from Red Dwarf. Do let us know, good sir, and I hope you're doing well. We take a look back to the race start, ladies and gentlemen, and what exactly happened at the start for Adam Miles. Let's ride on board and listen. And he launched, but he just completely struggled to get going, did Adam Miles. So he did actually get the car going, it didn't stall, but by the time he got himself up to speed, everybody else had already cleared him. So Miles having a slow start there, and I wonder whether he just got it wrong on the revs as he tried to get the car to engage. Keep in mind, of course, they do have a manual clutch in these cars, and therefore they do have to do all the legwork, both the accelerator, the brake, and also the clutch. But then we had this elsewhere on lap number 1. This was for Simon Wareham, who ends up in a bit of difficulty as he made his way down in towards turn number 3. Took a lot of entry curb there, and that upset the bounce of the car. You could see it bounced around, and that was where Wareham got it wrong, of course, in what was practice. The turns 3 and 4 seem to be the bane of Wareham's existence today. Meanwhile, we had this on lap number 2. This was for Mariano coming down into turn number 3, and I think here it might be the story that turn number 3 has proven to be very challenging for many a driver, as he carried a lot of speed in, and the rear of the car skidded loose. He tried to get control of it, and in the end had to briefly brush the barrier with his tyres, but well done to Mario for making sure it didn't end up in the wall. We had this also for Klaus Biederman, And this was Biederman making his way on through, and the car completely cut loose at him. And as he made his way up the hill, well done there to Kevin Budgeon for taking evasive action. And he did a brilliant job there not to be caught up. But for Biederman, that definitely was one of those moments there where I think it was heart in mouth. In fact, I think that was Martin van Eckelen who backed off there and made sure not to collect his fellow Dutchman. And, well, what a story for them. And we had this for Gordon van den Bergen only moments later. This was van den Bergen making his way into turn 7 and 8. Took a lot of speed on entry into 7 and drifted it even more. And then ended up in the grass and then went to rejoin. And as he did so, well, got the power down. The rear of the car was already cutting loose due to the elevation changes on the grass. And that is where what was van den Bergen found his way to the barrier, and his race ended up in pieces. So with that, we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. Those are some of the big moments from the opening couple of laps, and that goes to explain there what exactly happened to Adam Miles, who's already back up to 6th place. He is definitely crusading his way back up the order, but it's Hermann, Byfeld and Wade who are your top 3, and Geoff Randall has fallen back to 4th place. Wade has found his way on past, but you do have a top 5 who's very close together, and then Adam Miles, here's your 6th place man, with Mark Beckhouse a little bit further back, having a slow down in 8th, and Dennis Johansson between the two of them. Well, Miles right now is trying to close on the leaders, and he'll be hoping as we get closer to the end of this race, particularly when we've got 5 minutes left, that the leaders may go from being quite compliant with one another to suddenly fighting hard. As my good lord, is Miles there chucking the car at the corners. He's definitely trying to prove to himself that he can win this race, or at least get himself into the podium places, because I think he'll be absolutely fuming with the fact he had that slow start. But that's the way it goes. Even the very best out there make mistakes as well, and as he makes his way down the hill, we look a bit further to Remco Palacia, who's also on the attack, as he looks to fight up the inside of Beckhouse. It's going to be side by side into turn 3. Beckhouse on the outside there, just about keeps it on the road, and Palacia gets on the inside there. Lovely move from Remco Palacia, and we look back from the rear now of the 117, up into 8th he goes, and well, credit where it's due, Mark Beckhouse there had to defend around the outside. He tried it, but the Golf delivery machine in the end could not keep it together for long enough, and that was the difference between the two of them. Coming out to turn at number 8 and down towards 10 they roar, and right now Remco Palacia doing everything right, at least at this time, but understandably he's now got the best part of 1.5 seconds to chase down for Dennis Johansson. That's not going to be an easy gap to close down when Johansson is the fastest driver on circuit at the moment. At least the previous lap says that. Well, 1 minute 33.18 being the time he previously set. But we will see, because of course Slipstream gives and Slipstream takes, and also a lot of these drivers here, they do always have a little bit of pace up their sleeve. Further back down the order, Marcel de Hint, we talked about him earlier on in today's show, and right now he's with Joshua Harley fighting over 24th place. These two here enjoying a good little scrap. De Hint's exactly where he started. Harley started in 30th place. He was the lowest of the starters, and well, whilst one of those places has been made on Chris Wayne, who did not make it to the grid, a technical issue with the car sadly for the old Git Racing team driver means that he's not been able to make his way out in both qualifying and the race, and I suspect that the feature race may also be a doubt for our 69 driver. Well, Marcel de Hint has also picked up places through battling his way on through, past the likes of David Elliott and Mariano. As he continues to follow here, Josh Harley, meanwhile, also looking to continue to get to grips and pushing himself forward. You've got so many drivers of different skill levels out here, from rookies and what is novices all the way through to professionals. It's so wonderful to see, and a lot of these drivers have dedicated years to the Skippy for the reason they absolutely love it. And speaking of things we love a good bit of battling, and Marcus Byfeld right now is all over the back of Steff Hermann as they come down in towards the hairpin of turn number 10. I thought this time, what's he doing? Because he is getting closer. That's the one thing that's noticeable. Over the last 3 laps, he's brought the average time delta between the two of them down from 4 tenths to 2.5 tenths over the entirety of the lap. And what that might be a sign of is that Byfeld is now starting to think about that potential move. Keep in mind, of course, that Byfeld was a little bit further back on Hermann in qualifying. Hermann was the closest to Adam Miles' pole average time of what was only 11 thousandths between the two of them in 1 lap, and meanwhile whole tenth over the 3 lap average. Meanwhile Byfeld was further on down, but understandably that's just qualifying. This is the race, and winning the race is what truly matters, as Nathan Wade in the purple livery machine, your number 24 driver and previous champion of this series, well, he's just watching on at the moment and knowing that time is on his side, at least for now. We're coming out of turn number 2. Intriguingly there, Hermann taking a very tight exit line. Now, I wonder whether he's starting to get a little bit defensively minded here, as Byfeld's so close at that point, he actually has to lift off into turn number 3 for risk of making contact. So there's a plot thickening between them. Geoff Randall as well. He's lost the top 3. He's been caught up to Brian Kelly, who's really now over the back of him. So Randall might be looking at 4th place in this race at the very best, but if he does so, that's not going to be a bad result. It'll still further his championship charge, and indeed the results right now would see him get a bit closer to 2nd place in the championship. Brian Kelly, well, after that win in the feature race, I think right now that has given the 3-2-1 drive some confidence that he might just be able to make a win happen in what would be the sprint race as well, or at least a podium, but we will see because he's still got some time to go. Further back towards the bottom end of the top 20. After all that progress and some very exciting progress made by Jesus Cabal, well, right now, after all that progress, he has been held up a bit by Brody van der Meyden. And, well, Ludwig Sauer is also the man who's proven to be a little bit too resilient for everybody here. The number 23 driver may not have the pace. He's not driving too defensively, but he's doing exactly what he needs to, as Van Eckelen there, taking a little look up the inside into turn 12 on Cabal. And that's the first sign that I think that's the message of, please get a move on, I'll tell you once. But meanwhile, speaking of getting a move on here comes Brian Kelly up the inside of Randall into turn 1. That's going to be for 4th, and Randall in the end doesn't fight it too hard. I think his thought process is, you know what's the point fighting when I can still guarantee myself a top 5, excluding if Adam Miles is able to get close enough to this, and most importantly use Kelly to pull him up towards the leaders, who are surely bound to fight, right? So that's going to be the logic they're all thinking in this running procession. And as Randall comes on down here, you can see the body language of the car, much more composed now, knows he's got a car to follow. He doesn't need to throw the car through turns 3 and 4. He can back off just that little bit more. No fuel saving needed in this race, of course. This is a sprint. We're not expecting any pit stops. It will be in the feature where the fuel saving becomes a matter of fact. Further back, we look to Frankie D versus Kevin Budgen. They're still fighting each other for 13th place. And as they come up the hill, we can see Peter Suopanki watching behind, but Budgen holding on for now. And as he continues to make sure that Frankie D can't find a way on through, well, it definitely is going to be a fight that is moving them backwards towards the Ludwig Sauer pack, as Martin Van Eckelen on the inside of Jesus Cabal at the back of that group, and he moves into 18th place. So good move there from Van Eckelen. And by taking that now, what's going to be his next target? Well, surely, as there's a bit of a lock up there on the front right brake of Martin Van Eckelen, and where he manages to get it together just about. Those lockups, of course, they can prove to be quite decisive in the fact they'll take quite a bit out the tyre for a couple of laps, but also on top of that as well, they normally see you go very deep, and it is a slowdown there for Van der Meyden, making his way out of turn number 12, took too much of the track exit, and therefore he is going to have to burn that slowdown on the start-finish straight. Otherwise, it will most likely be converted into a drive-through penalty by the time he gets to the end. So therefore his rivals will tuck into the toe, and then they will notice that he's losing some time and they'll pull on out, and that's what Van Eckelen does exactly. And meanwhile Cabal, is he close enough to try and make that move happen? No, he's not. So in the end it's going to be Van der Meyden who just loses 1 place, and Cabal stays right behind him. Back to the front, and what we can see is that Hermann and Byfeldt have now got so close together, and the fact the pace of this race is starting to drop a little bit, that your 3rd place runner there of Nathan Wade is all over the back of him as they come round down through turn 7 into 8, and as they do, Steff Hermann right now, well, he has been denied the victory 6 times this season, and with 5 minutes to go, you would argue he no longer wants to be the bridesmaid. He wants to be the bride of the scene here today. Can he hold on just that little bit more for Asper Racing? We will see. Byfeldt and Wade are not easy rivals to deal with. Keep in mind that Marcus Byfeldt has been a championship contender in previous seasons, and Nathan Wade has been a previous champion of this series. So therefore, for Steff Hermann, a driver who's also been right up there in the very top 5 most seasons, and not all of them, this is no easy feat. He goes a little bit deep there at turn 14. The pressure is building here, and as they come roaring on around right now, well, I can tell you one thing. Ben Massey, who we say hello to the YouTube chat, takes the words out my mouth, saying these cars are fun to watch when they are so close. And indeed, Ben, you're absolutely spot on, and that's why we love it season in, season out. But on to lap 11 they go. 4 minutes left in the first race of the day. Your top 3 all together, and Brian Kelly has broken away in 4th from Geoff Randall, who now has the bit of a doomsday clock hanging over him, because behind him, that is Adam Miles. And we'll know Adam Miles is not going to cause havoc for him, but the point being that Adam Miles right now, your pole sitter, well, he'll want to try and take that 5th place back as soon as he can, and even have a shot at the 4th place of Kelly. Will he be able to do so? We will see. Further back, we can see Remco Placer, Mark Beckhouse, Titus de Jong and George Matter. They're all together. And these 4 drivers right now, they're all scrambling over 8th through to 11th place. And there's a bit of grass being taken up there. And George Mattock enjoying one of his better performances today so far. Great to see him here as he comes on through. As hold up a second, that's Peter Suopanki who's gone around at turns 3 into 4 as he's passed there as well by Cabal and Van der Meiden. Well, can we get a quick replay of what happened to Suopanki? Yes, we can. So there's Peter Suopanki coming down in towards the fast lane left with the fast lane right-hander, the double right. Took a very tight line and a tiny tap to the rear there of the car of what was, I believe, well, just double checking who that was. That I think that might have been the car of none other than I think it was Martin Van Icklen, and in the end that just sent him slightly on around. So a bit of a frustrating moment there, but from here we then make our way back to the very front of the field, and as we do, we have got 3 minutes or so left on the clock, and with our lap times being 1.5 minutes each, 2 more laps to go. But as they head in towards turns 1 and 2, right now Steff Hermann holding on. He's got to do this 2 more times. This is not easy, and right now, if Marcus Byfeld's been putting pressure on him, well, Byfeld's not been putting anywhere near the maximum pressure he can put on right now. It is the game of waiting to the very last lap, but Nathan Wade is looking around the outside, so Byfeld has to go a little bit defensive here. Looks at the switchback, but Hermann sees it coming and says, no, you don't. We jump on board here with your third place runners. He makes his way up the hill, and Nathan Wade right now has got the popcorn bucket seat view. He gets to watch these two, the closest of anybody on circuit, even closer than our cameramen and women dotted around. But the point is that for Nathan Wade, his game plan is going to be just wait to see if any excitement happens and then capitalise on it. Squeeze his way in there if he can. Because, of course, being the third player in this one, the idea is you don't want to get involved until you absolutely have to, because otherwise you might take yourself out of the opportunity for a win, might end up turning the fight for the win into a fight for second. And Wade right now playing the game of patience here. He is a very patient driver. It's the Britain. Oh, goodness me. As he takes a bit too much curb there on entry into turn number 12, and that causes the car to slide loose, and that's going to open up the gap a little bit. But there's half a second to close down, and he'll very quickly close that down on the start-finish straight, and also have the two in front fight him. So onwards they go. Brian Kelly, Geoff Randall and Adam Miles, they're all together. That's your second pack of 3. They come in threes that do these skippies, and then Dennis Johansson is the lonely one there, as is Remco Pleisier, albeit he's got the company of Beckhaus, de Jong and Mattock getting right onto the back of him. But back onto your lead group we go then for your final lap. Brian Kelly right now, well, he defends versus Randall and Miles into turns 1 and 2. It's a slow run there, but Randall hasn't got anything he can do about it. Meanwhile, right at the very front, Hermann goes defensive again. Now Byfeldt this time, what's he going to do? What can he do differently? Well, firstly, he pins Hermann as close as possible to the inside into the corner, but then opens it up at the last moment. Hermann now taking a very tight line. He's offline and coming up the hill. It's going to be Byfeldt looking around the outside. Too wide the exit, going up into the esses sequence here. It's going to be left now into a right-hander, and Byfeldt does get ahead. Hermann backs out of it immediately, knowing there's no point fighting it up here. Wait until later in the lap. Make a move perhaps into turn number 10. That's an opportunistic place to do so. Nathan Wade right now is looking on the back of this, as Kelly, Randall and Miles are still exactly as they were. As you can see them there, and we focus on them briefly, heading in towards the hairpin. Will anybody go for a dive up the inside here? The answer is going to be no. They all keep it relatively civil. I think they're thinking about later on this race, and indeed the race after. We're back to the lead group of 3, and we can see Byfeldt right now still ahead of Hermann, albeit Hermann is not falling away. That gap is staying no greater than 3 tenths here as they make the way through the left into the right. But this is turn number 14. It's a long sweeping right-hander. It never seems to end. Hermann, they're trying to poke his nose on the inside, but it's not going to be enough. For as they make the way to the start for this straight, Steff Hermann will be denied once again, and Marcus Byfeldt will take victory here in round number 7 of the championship ahead of Steff Hermann, with Nathan Wade completing your podium. Brian Kelly will hold off Geoff Randall and Adam Miles to 4th place. You can see how ecstatic he is, with Dennis Johansson in 7th place ahead of Remco Pleisier, and it'll be Mark Beckhaus and Peter de Jong who complete the top 10. Best the rest status for George Mattock ahead of Christopher Gerrits Jr., and then Kevin Budgeon will lead home 13th place ahead of Frankie D and Ludwig Sauer, who in the end held off the intentions of Martin Van Icklen to take 15th place. Well done to Sauer for that. He'll be your pole sitter for race number 2 coming up in due course. He'll be ahead there of Peter Suhr Suopanki, who finished 17th, and Jesus Cabal in the end saw his recovery end at 18th place, ahead of Roddy van der Meijden and Frederik Neptune, who finished 20th. We then did have a few more drivers still to finish this race, including what was Neil Bamber, Simon Wareham, Tom Payne, Joshua Harley and Marcel de Hint, and also all the way back there in 29th place after his early theatrics. Well, Klaus Biedermann right now, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, and he's going to finish this race on the lead lap with anybody else. Well done to him, and Klaus makes his way on home in 29th there, the last of your runners. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a first race of the day here, and in the end, Marcus Bierfeldt breaking the heart of Steff Hermann and preventing him from taking that victory. But you know what? Rather than just talk about it with a clear screen, as we look to the scenic view, let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. So as we can see, after a brilliant opening 20 minutes of racing for the Skip Barber Community Trophy Season 5, as powered by Musical Money and Old Git Racing Team and brought to you on iRacing, in round number 7, it was Marcus Bierfeldt who took victory, the smiling Swede, ahead of Steff Hermann. Nathan Wade completed your top 3 there, the top 3 separated by only half a second in total in the end, and it was a further 2.5 seconds back to Brian Kelly, who finished 4th, ahead of Geoff Randall for Old Git Racing Team and Adam Miles. The privateer took 6th place in the end, having had that very slow start from pole position, but he recovered well to go all the way back from 15th to 6th, ahead of Dennis Johansson, who felt a bit lonely then at 7th place, but still some good points to his name. Behind the number 7, quite poetic that his door number would line up to his finishing position, was the 117 of Remco Plaisir, who for Raging Turtle Racing held off Mark Beckhouse and Titus de Jong, and it was de Jong who completed your top 10. The Raging Turtle Racing driver made sure that George Mattock couldn't go any higher than 11th, but Mattock put on an absolutely brilliant show for best of the rest, ahead of Christopher Garris Jr., and it was Kevin Budgeon who did well to hold on to 13th, ahead of Frankie D, your debutant, and none other than Ludwig Sauer, with the Dutchman taking 15th and therefore being your reverse grid pole sitter for race number 2. Martin van Ecklen finished 16th, just ahead of Peter Suopanki, with the Old Git Racing Team driver's late spin costing him what could have been a top 10 finish. He was 2 seconds ahead of none other than Jesus Cabal, with Roddy van der Meijden and Frederik Neptune completing your top 20. Outside that top 20, 21st, it was Neil Bamber ahead of Simon Wareham, with Tom Payne 23rd ahead of Joshua Harley, and Marcel de Hint finished 25th. The German was followed up by the Irishman of David Elliott, with Mario Mariano, Gordon van den Bergen, and Klaus Biedermann completing all your finishes on the lead lap. And sadly, it was a non-start due to a technical issue for the 69 of Old Git Racing Team's Chris Wayne. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that was race number 1. But of course, we've got another race coming up very shortly, because we've just gone past 20 past 8 this evening, and that can only mean one thing. We are only moments away from going racing once again. But coming up next is the round 8 feature race. And just a reminder, that as the mandatory pit stop in it, they must come into the pits at some point to change what will be at the fuel tank in terms of refueling it. But beyond that, everything else is optional. And well, it's a top 15 inverted starting grid as well, and it's going to keep things ever the more interesting, particularly here at the tough technical test of Rudskogen Motorsenter. And as we take a quick sip of water there, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't got yourself some liquid refreshment, go do so now. If you haven't gone to the bathroom and you've been holding it in during the sprint race, go do it now, because when we get our 30-minute feature race underway, you won't want to miss a second of it, ladies and gents, because if it's anything like Oulton Park last time out, it will keep us all absolutely guessing all the way to the finish. So you've got 2 minutes or thereabouts as this warm-up session right now is underway, and this is a great opportunity for all of our drivers to take a bit of a breather and also think about their opportunities when it comes to the next race. And if you are someone like Titus de Jong, for example, putting a good effort and now be starting further up the order, starting in the front 3 rows for his this second race a day, he'll be thinking to himself, this is a prime opportunity to now another top 10 finish and get some good points. Meanwhile, if you're somebody such as Peter Suopanki, well, you know you're starting outside that top 15 inversions, therefore you're going to be doing all the hard work. But can he pull some magic and strategy around here? Because what we have seen, based on the sprint race, is that battling here does cost quite a bit of time, and unlike some of the other circuits we've raced at in the feature race where you've got longer straights and a lot more opportunity to do fuel saving, around here there have been so many corners in quick succession, fuel saving may not be as easy to do. So perhaps, do you consider going for an extreme undercut strategy where essentially you pit as early as you possibly can, put in the fuel to guarantee you'll get to the end of the race without needing the fuel saving or just a minutiae of fuel saving, and then push onwards. It might be a way to go when you've got nothing to lose. That's something that Sir Panky and other drivers will be thinking out, particularly when they're starting further down the order. But that's what always makes the feature race interesting, is the fact there's so many different ways to cut the strategy on it. And of course, your leaders, or the drivers who expect to be leading, and those who expect to be inside the top 10, such as Gordon van den Bergen, they can't necessarily risk going for the undercut, or they'll have to think about the undercut in the context of who they're battling at the time. And that's what Geoff Randall did to take that second place at Oulton Park. He undercut his rivals when they all started fighting in that long battle for second through to sixth. He was the sixth place man, but he made himself the second place man when all the stops were done. But will we see that today or plenty more? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to find out. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid then for our second and final race of the day here in Norway, this is how they'll line up. Ludwig Sauer takes the top 15 inverted pole position for the round 8 feature ahead of Frankie D. The American driver will then be followed up by the Briton of Kevin Budgen and the Swede of Christopher Geros Jr. Starting in 5th, it's George Mattock ahead of Titus de Jong, with Mark Beckhouse 7th on this grid ahead of Remco Palacia. The Raging Turtle Racing drivers are in a line, but meanwhile behind them on the opposite line is Dennis Johansson in 9th, and the Dane will be followed up by Adam Miles, who will look to get a better start from 10th place. In 11th, it's going to be Geoff Randall for the Old Git Racing team ahead of Brian Kelly, with Nathan Wade and Steff Hermann on row number 7, and Marcus Byfeld, your winner of race number 1, completes that inversion to 15th place. And it's going to be Martin van Eckelen 16th ahead of Peter Suapanki and Jesus Cabal, with Roddy van der Meijden and Frederick Neptune completing your top 20. And then outside that top 20, we do have then none other than Neil Bamber 21st ahead of Simon Wareham. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we need to get down to the front of the circuit because the lights are going on for the second and final time today. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go as our drivers roar the way away up towards turn 1. But as they do, who's had a good start and who's been a slow starter? Well, Adam Miles has struggled again as we just saw him fall off camera on the right hand side there. He's dropped down slightly versus Dennis Johansson, but meanwhile Ludwig Sauer and Frankie D, they go battling into turn 1. There's contact between the two of them. They get caught to each other and everyone immediately escapes around the outside, so the front row falls to the back, and meanwhile everyone else is taking a base of action just like that. So the door opens and Kevin Budgen sees it open and says, right, mind if I do? Mind if I step into this? And he goes roaring into lead as they make the way down towards turn number 3 for the first time of asking. Geoff Randall fighting hard there with Dennis Johansson, who finds his way out past, and Mark Beckhouse is there with him as Kevin Budgen's had a trip out wide. He rejoins, he heads up the hill, so now Geros Jr. takes the lead of this race. Is the lead of this race cursed? It may just be, given the fact we've had already 4 different leaders in the space of 4 quarters. Well, as they come roaring up the hill right now, Geros Jr., Tito de Jong and George Mattock are your top 3, but Dennis Johansson there, whatever he was saving in the sprint race, he's starting to show it here in the feature as he looks for a potential move. We're coming down in towards the hairpin. Well, it's going to be Johansson looking around the outside as George Mattock goes defensive. It's not going to quite work out, and Johansson right now looks around, but no way through. As hold up a second, we've had some drama further back, and I think Geoff Randall has been absolutely swallowed up in a whole group of cars. He's fallen all the way down to 8th place, as Kevin Budgen's fallen down to 10th. Oh, goodness me, there's been an instant. That's Mark Beckhouse that's ejected sideways at turn number 12. Couldn't quite tell you how that started, but I can tell you how it's ended for the one driver. But that definitely has been a bit of a battle there, and a few bruises perhaps on the cars, and we'll have to get a replay of that when we can. But definitely a little bit of a scrappy start for several drivers, but that's sometimes the way it goes as we take a look to the leaders after one lap. So Geros Jr. leads by 1 second over Titus de Jong. Then it's George Mattock in 3rd. Dennis Johansson, he's very quickly made his way from 9th to 4th ahead of Adam Miles, who's in 5th. Then we have Kevin Budgen in 6th ahead of Brian Kelly, followed by Steff Hermann, Geoff Randall and Martin van Eckelen completes your top 10. Best of the rest, it's Gordon van den Bergen who's got damage on the... In fact, no, it's Van Eckelen who's got damage on the car. Gordon van den Bergen, meanwhile, just carrying on his way. I'm not quite sure how Van Eckelen's got the damage, but either way, that's going to have to come into the pits within the next 3 laps. So it'll be either this lap, lap 3 or lap 4, but he must come in for repair work, otherwise the car will be disqualified. Meanwhile, looking further back, battling right towards what is the bottom end of the top 20. Well, this is the fight for 14th between Surpanky, Elliott, Wareham, D and Biederman. And, well, I think somebody's got it wrong there. Hold up, that's Brian Kelly going slowly. Kelly's had a nightmare moment at the start of this lap, and he's dropped all the way down from inside the top 5 to now into 13th place. I don't know how that's happened. I can tell you one thing, Kelly is not where we'd expect him. He's going to be looking for a way in. A big lock-up meanwhile, as we come all the way back up to the fight for 3rd place. And that's Dennis Johansson sliding onto our screen, quite literally, as George Mattock was being passed there into the hairpin. My good Lord. Dennis Johansson, well, I can tell you one thing, whatever Dennis was thinking of the sprint race, it was not to be as audacious as that as he has been in the feature race right now. I wonder whether the Dane smells blood in the water, because I definitely say he does at the moment, as he makes his way out to turn number 14. But as he comes roaring out of there, well, the first 2 laps have generated so much excitement right now, you can make a highlight reel out of just those, let alone the rest of the laps we're going to be delivering here, as into the pits to the rear of the picture went Gordon van den Bergen. That will be for repair work on his car. But meanwhile, in the foreground here, it's Budgeon versus Randall, and Randall again, well, not really fighting too hard at the moment, it's Geoff Randall. I wonder where he's taken the same approach as what he did at Oulton Park, which is see who he's going to be scrapping with and then work out a strategy off the back of that rather quickly. As he tucks into the toe there of Budgeon, he's got Van Ecklen right behind him, but Van Ecklen, of course, does have that looming threat of what is the meatball flag hanging over the car, and from them, well, Tita de Jong and Dennis Johansson are fighting still. So Johansson's now trying to go for 2nd place. He's not had his fill yet. He's still hungry for places. Young's going defensive there as Johansson's made to cut the course, and, well, it will count as a valid off track there. He won't have to serve a time penalty because of the fact he lost all the time by having to back the car off. But De Jong right now going defensives. We do see there the lovely dogs all over the front of another 7 car, but we can't admire pets for too long here as they come down into the braking zone. I wonder if they're Johansson's pets or not. But meanwhile, going in towards the hairpin, Dennis Johansson up the inside. I think De Jong deciding he doesn't want to fight it anymore, as Adam Miles tucks up the inside there of George Mattock. So Johansson up to 2nd, Miles up to 4th. Meanwhile, De Jong down to 3rd and Mattock down to 5th. It's all tossing and turning right now inside this top 5, and Christopher Garros Jr., for the fact he's in the lead, he's got a 1.3 second gap, but something tells me right now that gap is not growing at the rate he would like it to, with the fighting coming to a quick end there. But from them, we come back to Mark Beckhouse, the man who really impressed in race number 1. And right now, it's all gone a bit backwards here in race number 2. But he's down in 18th place. What can he do from this point onwards is the question. And the answer is, well, he's got to get himself together, which he's doing so well at the moment. I think there's places to be made. He's got to take his time with this now. He's got to think, right, it's not gone right, but where can it go better? As Nathan Wade as well, he's had a bit of a slow start to this one, having started in the 13th place. He's made his way backwards to 16th, but I suspect that's where the open lap madness just pushed him down a little bit. But as he almost looks up the inside of Frankie D at turn number 2 and then realises there's not enough space to do so, he's going to get a better run now down towards turn number 3. D struggling a little bit here. And I think the open lap altercation between himself and his fellow front row starter may have just damaged the car a little bit as Wade goes up the inside into turn 3. It's going to be too wide. D goes out nice and wide, tries to carry all the momentum up the hill, and in the end Wade does get ahead, and D just stays on the tarmac by literally millimetres there, and D trying to fight it all the way around. Credit where it's due, but Wade in the end just using that inside line to his advantage and is able to get it done by the time they get to 7 and 8, which is where you want to be ahead. Smart's coming off the under tray there of D's car, intriguingly, so something has dropped on that car, and as they make the way down in towards turn number 10, it's going to be practically 3 wide, as D's car definitely has got some damage on it. Wade goes out very deep there, and 3 cars pass it for the price of 1 apex, but up the hill they go. Nathan Wade right now is not in a happy place here, as Beckhouse goes too wide with him in towards turn number 12, but Frankie D's car's got some damage, and Biederman gets too close there, taps the rear of D. That's going to cost him some speed, but Beckhouse tucks the inside of Biederman. That's going to be on a converging line there right now. Nathan Wade finds himself constantly stuck in a very intense fight here, and where you think they were fighting for the win of this race given how fierce it is, but no, they're fighting over what is effectively, we believe, 13th place with Cabal and Surpanky both coming into the pits. But one would say that Surpanky and Cabal coming in, that's a sign of an early undercut strategy there. They want to try and move forwards. But as they all make the way onto another lap, they move forwards in time. Meanwhile, we move backwards in time to take a look back at some of the big moments from the very start of this race. So this was the open lap and the opening couple of quarters where we saw Frankie D go battling here with Ludwig Sauer. Looked up the inside, contact there to Sauer, and it sent them both sideways and to the grass. And oh, goodness me, one thing we didn't see happen in the rear of the picture was, well, the Raging Turtle racing cars got turned around there, and that was Remco Pleischer. What happened to him? This was the on-board from the Dutchman's perspective. So through turn 1, A-OK, into 2, things go wrong in front, everyone starts checking up, and as he made his way along, oh, he had to back off, and that's why Nathan Wade's been going so slow in the further down, because he was collected there by Remco Pleischer and turned slightly. This was Wade's perspective inside the car, so as the 24 driver made his way in, well, he's going to be on the inside line like many here, and they'll all have to fan out. Wade does so very quickly, but then Pleischer just comes loose, and as a result, the 24 driver gets collected there as he tries to chuck it round. Oh my good lord, the fact that he tried to recover it there as the field was coming through. Well, Nathan took a risk there. It worked out. I can imagine that other drivers there might have been a little bit worried. Marcus Byford was also caught up in that. That was a huge incident. Meanwhile, we look to Frederick Neptune and Neil Bamber. This was them into turns 3 and 4. And Bamber very sideways there. Neptune on the outside of him in towards 4. Contact between the two of them. And unfortunately, it caused a bit of chain reaction. A couple of cars had to take to the grass. And that was the whole field spreading there as then the two drivers got themselves going. Well done to everyone for negotiating that, because that would not have been an easy situation when you're off camber and off load coming into turn number 4. But we also had this a lap later for Ludwig Sauer. This was Sauer battling later on to lap number 2. Still fighting, funny enough, with Frankie D again, I believe. And, well, D went very deep. And in the end, Sauer got collected there by Van den Bergen and went around. So, right now, turn 1 and 2 are not the place the Dutchman wants to ever be again, I suspect. And we also had this for Brian Kelly on lap number 2, as we do get a replay. There we go. And as the American driver made his way in towards turns 3 and 4, went very deep, continued to try and hold it, drifted wider and wider, and in the end the rear of the car said no, and Brian Kelly went round, got it back together, and that's explaining why he dropped so far down the order when we didn't see what had happened. And that was a bit of a nightmare moment for him, and back to live racing we come. So with that, we've lost a couple of laps by looking at replays, but still we are looking at what is the battle here between what is Beckhaus and also Karl Biedermann, with Nathan Wade having found his way ahead and Simon Wareham is the next target. Intriguingly, Martin van Ickelen, also Marcel de Hint, Neil Bamber have all come into the pits and they've retired their cars due to damage. So therefore we are down to 25 runners at the moment, but we've also had some early pit stops as Randall's into the pit lane nice and early. So therefore he's decided enough's enough. We're going to bring up the pit stop indicator on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, so that way you can see who's taken a stop and who has not, and that'll help you understand where they all are in strategy right now as all drivers continue their way around. But definitely these strategies here proving to be intriguing for many a driver, as Dennis Johansson and Christopher Gerrits Jr., they have swapped places in fact. So Johansson has taken the lead of this race and he did so on lap number 6. We'll get a quick replay of that, and here it is. So this was on the run down towards turn number 3, and Gerrits Jr. they're not really fighting it, but would he want to fight it this early on in the race? The answer would normally be no, and Johansson just went up the inside and said thank you very much, and I think the two of them now trying to work together here as they go deeper into the race distance. So back to them live, a third of this race already complete, just as quick as that. These races are flying by this season. That's not a bad thing. That is a compliment to the fact it's so much excitement. The time flies when you're having fun. And I think all the drivers are having plenty of fun out there. Johansson and Gerrits Jr. trying to pull away, but George Matuk and Titus de Jong, they are trying to give pursuit here. It's close, but it's not quite close enough at the moment for them to be able to get the distant toe off of the leaders. They need to be within about 1.2 seconds to start to really feel it, and when they get within 1 second, that's where it becomes truly pronounced. Keep in mind, of course, that these open-wheeled skippies, well, they have small rear wings and small front wings. They don't have too much air on them, but what air they have, it's precious, and it does mean they do cut quite a punchy hole through the air in front of them, which the cars behind will pick up on quite quickly. And we've seen that time and time again this season, where that air really does change the characteristics of the car, whether in clear air or the dirty air of another machine. But further back, having pitted, Frankie D fights with Peter Suopanki, and right now these two are giving it a good go, heading up the hill. Out to 10 in towards 11, and he looking around the outside here in the number 18, but it's not going to quite work out. He goes the switchback instead, but Suopanki matches him corner for quarter there, and indeed the apex speed and exit speed there in the favour of the Finn rather than the American, who just stays behind and watches for now. And Roddy van der Maiden is queuing up behind him as well. Now, what's quite intriguing with regards to these pit stops in terms of the times, well, we've got quite a variety of stop times. Some drivers have taken a 10-second stop, others have gone as short as 6.5. So therefore, it's all about the fuel saving for many a driver. As we can see, D looks at the inside, but Serpanki defends it harshly from the middle of the road to the inside of turn number 2. So a lovely bit of work there from what was Serpanki just to make sure D could not find his way through. But this battling is going to cost both of them time. And I'm pleased to say that the team were able to do the quick repair on Frankie D's car to get that damage on the under tray out the way, because I think it was definitely hurting the car more and more. As D tries to dive up the inside there to turn 3. He's got the confidence back in the car, but right now Serpanki is not going to reward him for it. As they head up the hill, he's going to absolutely prove to be obstinate as Serpanki as they roar the way through the uphill SS sequence. And right now the 777 driver here, I think he's sacrificing his ability to go hunting for more places to keeping D behind. But to be fair, if that's the race, if that's the way it's going to go, Serpanki's not going to complain. He's going to have some fun with it. And right now Frankie D's got a very tough task ahead of him. But down into the hairpin they come, and Roddy van der Meyden is queuing up behind these two. He's getting ready to get involved. As we can see him there, only half a second further adrift, but right now it's these three all locked in for the fight for 19th on the road at least. But strategy-wise, we believe this might be the fight for 16th or 15th place when all is said and done on pit stops, depending on where the rivals are. But meanwhile, Nathan Wade into the pit lane. Adam Miles, he continues as well. He has pitted as Miles. He took his pit stop on lap number 5. It was rather longer pit stops, so therefore he's bought himself plenty of clear track. Up in front of him, there is nobody who has pitted as of yet. So therefore, for Adam Miles, this is now the game of putting qualifying laps all the way to the end of the race. He's just going to chuck himself at the circuit lap after lap and see what he can do. Nathan Wade, meanwhile, comes out the pit lane, and that is with Peter Serpanki and Frankie D. Drops him behind them both, or does he? Well, I think right now he'll want to try and get ahead at least D if he can pick up the toe there of Serpanki. And Serpanki being kind to give him most of the draft initially, but then starts to give it to D to get the two to fight each other. D's going to be on the inside as he drifts his way down to 3. Wade on the outside. And coming in towards turn number 4, Frankie D really tucks it in nice and tight there. Lovely bit of work from Frankie D to get back ahead of Wade. And Wade right now just can't find a way through. And this has got even more frustration for the Briton in the fact the race started off rough after he took that evasive action, but it wasn't enough. And after that pit stop where they've repaired the car, they've got a full tank of fuel back in. He's coming right back out into one of the biggest battles of them all, but it's all the way down for what is going to be the bottom end of the top 15 when all the pit stops are done. And we've got more pit stops playing out. Brian Kelly's into the pit. So is Mark Beckhouse. They are all coming in, and I think right now a lot of drivers realising that with the scattering of incidents in the opening 4 to 5 laps of this race, a lot of space has actually been created on the circuit, and therefore that's going to give drivers plenty of room in which to potentially pit. Adam Miles, he's now up into 12th place as Brian Kelly leaves the pit lane. He's got a long way to go before he gets off the limiter line. Mark Beckhouse is still being serviced, but that means Miles has cleared him. Gordon van den Bergen's not too far behind. And here comes Van den Bergen. Will he beat Brian Kelly? I don't think he will. I think Kelly's just going to come out slightly ahead here as they make the way onto turn number 2, and he does. Brian Kelly will breathe a sigh of relief that he's at the head of this group and not in amongst it. However, the only problem is he's going to be bringing Van den Bergen and Randall along with him. Adam Miles right now is really the anomaly here. He is 10 seconds up the road from these guys, and having made his pit stop, Miles right now is flying out there. The pace of Adam Miles is in the 32s constantly. He is absolutely giving it everything, whereas everybody else is in the 33. So Adam Miles is the one to watch. He may just get into the leader's race and strategy if it all works out towards the end of the race. We will see, or at least he'll be chasing for what will be a top 5 if not a top 3. But meanwhile, the big scramble up the hill here, and what exactly is going on? Well, what is going on is that Mark Beckhouse has just lost several places. He's dropped all the way down from what was 17th into 20th place after leaving the pit lane, and here's a quick replay to explain. So this was Beckhouse leaving the pits, but look to your left and what you'll see there is the Serpanki train, and heading over that limiter line. Well, Beckhouse did everything there to open up the pit lane exit, and well, coming in towards turn number 2. Serpanki on that inside line. Beckhouse went out wide, went a bit too wide. In fact, he got caught up on the marbles there, did Beckhouse, and as a result, what was looking to be a breather and what was a brief gasp of relief in the end has turned out into a bit of a nightmare. On the outside now, everyone immediately knew what to do. They all went to the inside and then all fanned out here. And Ian Beckhouse on the outside line had nowhere to go. Cold tyres as well. He went wide, and all three of them, what was none other than Serpanki, D and Wade, all got past, and Beckhouse had to tuck back in as Frankie D still continued to fight with Serpanki at the end of that moment. Well, goodness me, the battle between them, it's definitely right now. This battle is swallowing up so many drivers here as Adam Miles makes his way past David Elliott. That is a move being made in towards what will be turn number 5. And David Elliott right now dropping down as Adam Miles, who is a strategy ahead of him in terms of he's got one pit stop over Elliott. So Elliott recognising there's no point fighting, the writing's on the wall, that if you fight with him, all you're doing is holding up his race and holding up your own race. But Miles right now is absolutely going all in. He's not the driver with the fastest lap in his name as of yet, because his fastest lap, his fastest valid lap, has been a 32.88. The fastest lap is owned by Steff Hermann on a 32.65, which he's just done before coming into the pits. So Steff Hermann is in from at the time what was none other than 4th place as he makes his way along. Hermann right now knows that this is an important pit stop. He needs to beat Miles. If he doesn't, then Sonny Adam Miles could definitely be on course for winning this one. We will see. As we look to George Mattock and Titus de Jong for a brief moment. They're still up towards the very front of the field, yet to pit. But where is Miles? There he is. He's going to pass Hermann. That is well clear of Steff Hermann as he makes his way in towards turns 1 and 2. It's a bit misty there, but you should be able to see the outline of Steff Hermann's car there. The yellow just reflecting in what sunlight is available, and Hermann has come out in 12th place. He is the second of our drivers who has pitted in the running order now, with Brian Kelly a further 5 seconds back. Kelly might be in the rear of the picture. There he was for a brief moment, and here he is now as Gordon van den Bergen and Geoff Randall are still latched onto the back of him. So this race is keeping us guessing, because those who are staying out and going long and going for the overcut strategy, where is it going to put them? I can't figure it out, to be honest. I would say that if Steff Hermann is coming from 4th place or 5th place at the time, and he's come behind Adam Miles to the tune of what has been 8 seconds, then right now Dennis Johansson might be the only driver here who can perhaps beat Adam Miles on the strategy, as Titus de Jong and George Mattock have changed places because Mattock is into the pits. So Mattock has decided to get out of the fight with the Dutchman. He makes his way on down. Does he have a bit of concern here? Does he think he's going to lose out if he doesn't pit sooner rather than later? Well, we'll soon find out. But it really is one of these races that is keeping everybody guessing as much as possible. Van den Bergen, meanwhile, he finds himself right in the midst of the Kelly-Randall battle. He's the middle man in this one. And are they fighting for 3rd, or are they fighting for somewhere else inside the top 5? That is the question, because there's been such a spread of the strategy, and what's happened at the start of this race has really opened up so many doorways for everybody. Well, here they come out the final corner. Adam Miles has just cleared Mattock. Mattock is now starting to leave the pit lane as they head on down. Then is Steff Hermann. He's going to clear Mattock. What about Kelly, van den Bergen and Randall? I think Mattock going to come out amongst these guys, because as he gets himself up to speed on the pit lane exit of 1, here comes Kelly. It's going to be close. Does George Mattock just come out ahead of him? Yes, he does, but he's going to be embroiled in this. There's no way out for George Mattock here, and that means suddenly now this could be a fight for effective 4th to 5th place, because if Dennis Johansson and Gerst Jr. are, as we think they are, currently running comfortably ahead, well, you would imagine they're going to come out ahead of this group by the best part of at least 3 to 4 seconds. Titus de Jong's going to find himself in this group very shortly, given how close he was to Mattock at the time of Mattock's pitting. So therefore, the battle for the win is likely to be on strategy, at least between Johansson and Miles, with Gerst Jr. also playing a role in that. Meanwhile, the battle for the podium is also going to bring Hermann into the mix. And then who rounds off the top 5 will be in this group, plus Titus de Jong. That's the prediction here on strategy, but we'll see. We've still got 9.5 minutes to go. New fastest lap of the race for Christopher Gerst Jr. He has set an absolutely brilliant lap, and that has been without the slipstream. He's delivered that. So Gerst Jr. has started to bear his fangs right towards the end of his stint. I suspect the pit stop is not too far away, perhaps at the end of lap 14, which we're now onto. Kevin Budgeon's into the pit lane as I look out my contact booth window, but Geoff Randall here looking to fight his way round the outside of Van den Bergen coming through. And turn at number 12 and in towards 13. Can he do it? And the answer is no. The old Git Racing team driver still staying behind here as they make the way off corner and up towards turn number 1. Now into the draft he goes, as Adam Miles has just set an even faster, fastest lap place of 32.477. My good Lord, Miles is going out there. And well, right now as these guys battle their way in at the distant background of the camera shot, or indeed up the road from Geoff Randall, that was Brian Kelly getting his way back past George Mattock into 10th place. But we believe they're really fighting for 5th at the moment. I think that's where they are effective in this strategy. And Brian Kelly right now, I think, knows that and gets to the head of the group. 9, all this fight is only going to cost them time, and he wants to be right at the top of it. But Randall there looks like the inside of Van den Bergen, tries to tuck it into turn number 3. That's not going to work. Instead, just stays behind now, and Mattock, I wonder whether he'll go on the offensive or go on the defensive at this point. surely it's got to be the form where he's got to try and stay with Kelly to make sure that Vandenbergen and Randall don't attack him instead. But it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do it as Dennis Johansson's into the pit lane. This is one of the big ones as Gerrit Jr. carries on and Titus de Jong does the same, but Johansson goes on. What about Marcus Byfeld? He also stays out here, so they're all committed to the strategy. They're all committing to go as long as possible. Meanwhile, the others are not, and well, here comes Randall looking out the inside as Vandenbergen's dropped backwards. I think he's had a bit of a moment. We'll get a replay of that shortly, but Randall here has made one place up. Can he make two? He goes to the switchback coming through turn number 12, and the answer is he might be able to into 13. No, he doesn't. He ducks back into the toe for a brief moment. Now looking all the way around, but it's not going to work. Dennis Johansson starts to leave the pit lane. Where is Adam Miles? Miles is ahead of him. He's going on the inside of Ludwig Sauer. So Miles right now is your leader in this race. Surely, when all the pit stops are done, Miles has just jumped ahead of Dennis Johansson, who was one of your effective leaders. And well, Miles has come out ahead of him to the tune of 5 seconds. This is Miles' race, unless Gerrit Jr. has done an absolutely huge amount of fuel saving in this opening stint. Miles right now is going to pull a blinder on everybody when he sees that Gerrit Jr. comes into the pit lane, because it will be Christopher who finds out in the end that Miles is going to be about 3 seconds ahead of him at the end of the pit stop window. We're not too far away from it, given the fact we've only got 5 cars yet to pit, but right now Adam Miles is the one to beat, and Dennis Johansson here has Steff Hermann right behind him. So for Hermann, that early pit stop in the end has brought him into the battle for effective a third place, potentially second, and Johansson's got to try and hold on here for at least a lap to make sure that he's not going to be passed, but that's a lot easier said than done, as Randall has found his way past George Mattock. And in terms of those moves that Randall's been making, well, we need to take a look back firstly to see how he found his way past none other than Gordon Vandenbergen, and here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen. So this was Geoff Randall at the time chasing after Vandenbergen. Up into turn 7 they went, and well, Mattock went a bit deep. Vandenbergen went deeper still, and he made contact there to the back of Mattock, and in the end that enabled Randall to sneak his way through. And then only months later, Randall did this versus Mattock, and this was heading down the start-finish straight. It was a battle of the slipstream, heading down towards turn number 1. Randall gradually started to inch his way ahead, and well, it's the left into the right here. So did he get it done before the exit of the first corner? The answer is yes, he did. He parked it on apex. Mattock tried to come back at him and found a face full of musical money machinery. But meanwhile, as they head onwards, well, right now we come back to your live pictures, and the only driver who has yet to pit is Marcus Byfeld. But there is the proof. Adam Miles has come out ahead of Christopher Gerrit Jr. and the gap is 3.5 seconds. So it has been a jump there for Adam Miles. He's taken the lead this race, because when Marcus Byfeld pits, he's not coming out ahead of this group, given he's been behind it over the course of the first stint. And suddenly Adam Miles right now is looking very much on his way to another win this season, and Miles has pulled off an absolutely incredible bit of strategy compared to the rest of his peers, but he's still got to get to the end with 5 minutes left. Anything can happen, it normally does in motorsport, and we will see what is to come, as Dennis Johansson now knows that he is fighting for third here with Steff Hermann, and they're going to be fighting for it all the way to the end, but they haven't got any other actors playing a role at the moment, with Gerrit Jr. 1.8 seconds up the road. Well, right now Johansson will be hoping he can close up to the Swede just that little bit, but it may not be that easy. Titus de Jong, meanwhile, he's trying to stay ahead of Brian Kelly in the hunt for 6th place, as de Jong right now has a 1 second gap. He'd like it to be about 1.5 seconds to make sure the slipstream becomes insignificant for Kelly, but right now Kelly is doing everything he can to push after the Raging Turtle racing machine. Understandably, he would like to get closer, and that will keep him safe from the Randall Mattock Vandenbergen battle group, as Jesus Cabal down in 11th place is 6 seconds back. He's not really close to get involved. However, if these guys fight, he may just do so at the very end of the race. But as we do say hello there to old WN, who says Will has been having problems since lap 3 and it's now just broken or died. Very sorry to hear that, good sir. Couldn't quite see it. I believe that might be Nathan Wade there, given the fact that Wade is in the pit lane. He's been there for some time, and if so, to apologise. But either way, well, sorry to hear that, and hopefully you can get it repaired for the next pair of rounds in a week's time. But as we come back to the race here, Vandenbergen dives up the inside of Mattock there. My goodness, that was a committed move, and I don't think Mattock saw that coming. in until the last possible moment, but Van den Bergen went all in for it, and now Geoff Randall will be looking at his rearview mirror and thinking, how on earth has the second racing car done that? Oh, and Van den Bergen had full commitment there. That was either going to happen, or it was going to see both him and Mattock into the barrier at turns 4, and well, in the end, Van den Bergen made that happen, and Mattock respectfully gave him the space to operate. I think he was tempted to close the door, and then realised that would not be healthy whatsoever. But we take a look back at that, because goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a move. Now, this was on board with Gordon Van den Bergen as he made his way down towards turn number 3. And, well, you'll see Mattock there brakes, but meanwhile, Van den Bergen says, no, I'm not braking yet. I'm going to go all in. And in the end, will just absolutely scythed his way out the inside, and a lovely move. Oh, goodness me, from Van den Bergen. So coming on through, and well, old WN confirms that is Nathan Wade. I'm so sorry to hear that, Nathan, because you have an absolutely brilliant run up through the field and a great race one as well. But still glad to have you tune in right now, and hopefully that just gives you some consolation. I mean, turn that little upset face up into a bit of a smiley face. But as all drivers make the way through, well, right now we're only 2.5 minutes to go. Not long left in this race, and Marcus Byfeld, is he trying to no-stop this with 2.5 minutes left? Because the regulations do say you have to pit in the feature for fuel. If he's able to pull this off as a no-stop, I remember this has happened previously. Back in Season 1, we had a driver, I don't know if it was Marcus Byfeld, but somebody did pull off a no-stop at a feature race, and they pulled off the win as a result of it. The result was disallowed, but everyone, including the admins, had their jaws absolutely hanging wide open because of it. And the driver, to be fair, understood that it was the rule regulation. But meanwhile, Van den Bergen, well, he's going to have his jaw wide open for a different reason. He's made a complete ham sandwich on the run through turn 6 into 7, and George Mattock just cuts in and says thank you very much. But to confirm our suspicions, Marcus Byfeld has gone every lap minus the final lap, and he does come into the pit. So he makes his way down, and Byfeld in the end has to release the lead. But what a brilliant drive from the number 105 driver, and in the end able to keep it going every step of the way, all the way to the very end, and that's where he's had to take the fuel stop. So Adam Miles will now take the lead as he goes on to the final tour of the Rudskogen Motorsenter circuit. As he does so, where does Byfeld fit into this? There's Walsh Jr. in second. Johansson versus Hermann. They're fighting over third. Byfeld still leaving the pit lane, so he's not fighting for third. Could he be fighting for fifth amongst Titus de Jong? We will see. As we can see, Johansson holding on for now versus Hermann. Then it's going to be Byfeld coming out the pit lane. Where is de Jong meanwhile? Here he is, and he is bringing with Brian Kelly. Geoff Randall's almost there as well. So it is a very crucial pit stop for Marcus Byfeld. It puts him at the head of the fifth place pack as Van den Bergen's into the pit lane for more repair work to the car, I believe, or a quick splash and dash of fuel, in fact, as I just look out my pit window and notice there all the fact that everyone has had to go around the car. But meanwhile, Brian Kelly battling with Titus de Jong gets up the inside to cover off his position and will take that 6th place off of the Dutchman for now. But I can imagine de Jong's going to come back at it very quickly here like a ball in a China shop. But meanwhile, roaring the way up the hill, these drivers weaving and winding their way. George Mattock goes a little bit deep there as that's onto the grass for Roddy van der Meijden, who respects the blue flags. But from them, we come back to the third place fight as Johansson right now holding off with Steff Hermann. Hermann close, and Steff Hermann will again find himself just missing out. Oh, Willie, as there's a mistake there from Johansson. Goes deep, he's got the inside into turn number 12, and now it's going to be Hermann looking all the way around the outside. This is going to be bold, it's going to be brave, but it's not going to be enough for Steff Hermann. He's got one more chance on the run towards the finish line, but meanwhile, winding his way out the final corner. Well, the sprint race, it all stalled until he got it going, but here in the feature, this is Adam Miles at his very best, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Miles wins the feature race at Rudskogen in round 8 of the championship ahead of Christopher Walsh Jr., who takes his best result of the season, and Dennis Johansson stops Steff Hermann from making it another podium by taking third. Marcus Byfeld takes 5th ahead of Kelly, de Jong and Randall, and it'll be George Mattock in 9th ahead of a rather lonely end to the race for Jesus Cabal, who completes your top 10. However, Kevin Budgeon, who rounds off the run to the best of the rest, and then it will be Peter Surpanki in 12th ahead of Mark Beckhouse, who takes 13th place ahead of Remco Pleisier, and Klaus Biedermann in the end will round off that top 15 with Ludwig Sauer passing Frankie D. Rice at the end, who was struggling for fuel, I think, on the final lap. Simon Wareham will take 18th place ahead of Frederick Neptune. Here is Neptune crossing the line in the 666 machine ahead of David Elliott. That'll be a top 20, and Gordon Van den Bergen in the end has to settle for 21st place as he shows his frustrations in style there and goes to the barrier. And well, ladies and gents, what a conclusion to an absolute absolutely brilliant race. And well, there were so many chapters in this race, including the lap 1, turn 1 and 2 instant that caused the whole field to fan out and scatter. And then there were a couple of isolated instants late on that opening lap. But it opened up the door for so many drivers to consider their strategic choices. And Adam Miles in the end, well, he found the strategy where it mattered, which was to pit on lap number 5 and then just steal away the win from under everybody's nose, is essentially taking the Geoff Randall approach from Oulton Park, but this time making it work out for a win that he must have absolutely felt he threw away from himself in the sprint. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as all the drivers cool on down, let's take a look to the scenic view and with it the race results, subject of course to any stewards' inquiries. So as we can see, after an absolutely enthralling 30 minutes of racing for round number 8 of Season 5 of the Skip Barber Community Trophy, brought to you on iRacing and sponsored by Musical Money and Old Kit Racing Team, Adam Miles was your winner of the privateer by 4 seconds over Christopher Geros Jr. Dennis Johansson in the end finished in third, holding on valiantly versus Steff Hermann, who was all over the back of him, but in the end the German driver couldn't quite make the magic happen, even with Johansson making that mistake at turn 10 on the final lap. Marcus Byfeld took 5th there, holding off the long pack of cars that extended with Brian Kelly, Titus de Jong and Geoff Randall. And George Mattock, unfortunately, towards the very end of the race, just started to fall back, but he took 9th place there, and a great drive for him, and indeed he's had one of his best pairs of races today here in Norway. Jesus Cabal took 10th place there, the Spaniard enjoying another strong showing, albeit after he moved to 10th, that was where he was destined to finish with nobody around him to play with, but he was 1 second ahead at the close of Kevin Budgeon, who was best the rest of 11th. Peter Suapanki, 12th there for Old Kit Racing Team, and starting to find his feet a little bit more as the rounds are going on, with Mark Beckhaus there in 13th place, the German driver having a bit of a different style of race in this one compared to how he did in the sprint race, but still, it can't always go perfect the first time out, but he'll be looking to build upon this for next week. He was ahead of Remco Placier, who finished 14th for Raging Turtle Racing, and then in 15th was Klaus Biedermann with another challenging race to add up to the difficulties of the sprint. Ludwig Sauer took 16th place in the end, just ahead of Frankie D, the two of them having that altercation right at the start of the race, and it seemed as though they were always destined to finish together today and race together over the distance, with Simon Wareham in 18th place ahead of Frederick Neptune, and David Elliott completed your top 20. Outside the top 20, in 21st place, it was Sickhead Racing's Gordon van den Bergen ahead of Joshua Harley, and it was a lap down for Roddy van der Meerden, and unfortunately we did have retirements in this race, including Nathan Wade with technical issues there, but he's been a sport and said hello in the YouTube chat, but sorry to hear about those technical issues once again for the British driver, difficulties for Tom Payne as well, and also we had retirements for Martin Van Ickelen, Marcel de Hint, Neil Bamber, Mario Mariano, and a non-start for Chris Wayne, the Old Kit Racing Team driver in the end, with technical issues with the car, not able to make qualifying nor both the races. So with that, ladies and gents, that concludes our second and final race of the day. And as the circuit falls silent here in Rakkestad, well, this broadcast isn't going to fall silent for too long, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time will be the first of our post-round interviews with our drivers. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And we're going to kick off with a man who today demonstrated his prowess in qualifying, didn't quite go right in the sprint race, but came back for victory in the feature. It is none other than Adam Miles, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Adam. What a challenging day from yourself. It could have been perfection, but it was not quite due to a bit of a slow start in the sprint. But happy with the win in the feature at least?
Sprint race, I don't know if you caught it over the radio, but I had my USB headphones disconnect on the grid, which as they reconnected, iRacing had just frozen for several seconds right just before the red light. So it came back, I panicked, wasn't in first gear, so I had the foot to the floor in neutral. So that's how I screwed up the sprint race, but it probably set me up well for the reverse grid. I can't remember where I started, but I think because I finished 6th in the first one, I was 6 places further up in the feature race, so that probably helped. I think Steff probably had the best pace today, so got into the pits as quickly as I could, just because I was catching Geoff and I think Christoph, so managed to get some free air and was able to put in some good laps.
Oh, well, sorry to hear about what happened with regards to the headset and then subsequently the changes of iRacing, but glad that we could get you going in the end in the sprint. But dialing things back to qualifying, of course, our 3-lap average style session today, and in the end, taking pole position by a comfortable degree of margin. How did you find it out there?
Yeah, it's not the first time I've done sort of multi-lap average qualifying. It's quite different, it's quite fun. But of all the tracks to do it on, Rudskogen is notorious for its off tracks, particularly through the chicanes of, I guess, turn sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, that sort of period of the lap. So to do 3 consecutive laps without pinching an off track through there, because it's worth time to get close, but one single off track on one of those 3 laps and you set no time at all. So I had to leave some margin. I think I like it. I like the format. Rudskogen's such a nasty place to do a 3-lap average qualifying.
Oh, indeed. It's almost as if it's been intentionally done that way to put you under even more pressure. But still, you rose to the occasion in the qualifying session. And in the sprint, obviously, we've talked about the start, but battling your way through, we saw you very quickly start to carve your way from what was the bottom end of the top 15 to an eventual 6th place finish. How did you find it fighting in amongst the mid-pack? Because we normally see you at the front, of course.
Yeah, it's not only is it a track notorious for off tracks, but it's very hard to overtake here, and I had to really get my elbows out a little bit more than I would at any normal track. There's no long straight, a Spa or a Road America or something like that, where you can get one position every lap just by using the slipstream. You have to work for every position. You've got to get someone out of position, try and cut under, do something to force the issue, and that was that I had to do. But also had to keep the car clean, and there's no point wiping the front end off and being last. So yeah, sort of fought my way through. It was good fun. Seemed pretty clean on the way through, and I just ultimately didn't have the pace to catch the top 5.
Well, a bit of a challenging one in the end. Like you say, the difficulties of overtaking being laid bare. But then going into the feature race, starting further up than you normally would, we saw you decide to come into the pits quite early. Was that always the plan, or did you make that as a bit of a reactionary choice?
It was just I had planned to pit as early as possible. In fact, I pitted a lap later because I wasn't quite sure if the race was going to run one extra lap. So I waited until the end of lap 5, which just so happened to be the point at which I caught Christoph and Dennis. So it worked out pretty well, as did the fact that there was no traffic sort of 25 seconds behind the leaders at that point in time. So it was the plan, and there was a bit of fortuitous timing to go with it.
Well, some good timing to go with it, and as you committed to the plan, we saw you start to deliver lap after lap in clear air. You were getting faster, lapping as quick as the leaders, and then subsequently going for the fastest lap as well. At what point did you sort of think to yourself in that situation, this strategy has worked? Because it's a long distance to commit to, pitting on lap number 5, and knowing you've then got to wait several laps before you see the rewards of your strategy.
Yeah, I have JRT up on my side monitor, so I'm sort of keeping an eye on other people's lap times. I knew I had to lap faster than Dennis and Christoph, obviously, because they were ahead of me before I pitted. But I also had an eye on Steff, who was, I think, about 3 seconds behind when I pitted. So he was setting fastest lap on a lap, and then I would sort of take it off him by a 10th or 2. So I knew he wasn't gaining any time, and as long as I nailed pit entry and pit exit and didn't pick up any speeding penalties, then I was fairly sure that there was no one else who was going to be able to sort of overcut me. And yeah, I think I came out about 5 seconds ahead of Steff at the end. So it all worked out, and yeah, no problems on pit entry, thankfully, because it's a bit of a tricky entry. I actually got to slow down on pit entry. I think if you cut towards the barrier just a little bit too much, it gives you a slowdown, which it doesn't tell you about until you've entered pit lane, and then you get an absolute 40 seconds stop and hold penalty. So I left a bit of margin on pit entry as well, just to make sure.
Well, cautious today, but it definitely worked out for yourself in the feature race. And with that win, well, it's a big injection of points as we start to really see the championship momentum swing back and forth. Of course, Steff Hermann is the man to beat with his consistency thus far, and I think you'll be getting closer to him. But what can we expect from you next time out when we do make our way for rounds 9 and 10 to none other than Circuit Zandvoort?
Yeah, it's not my favourite track, but it's a nice track. The run down to turn 1 is probably the only real overtaking opportunity. I do enjoy driving there. Obviously the big banky boy at turn 4 is a lot of fun, and these skippies running sort of the wall of death around the outside. So yeah, I had to miss a couple of rounds at the season due to travel, but hopefully can start racking up some points and try and challenge Steff for the championship.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at Circuit Zandvoort and seeing whether you can close the gap and build those points as rapidly as you plan to. But just before we do let you go, Adam, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Thank you to you. As always, the broadcast is perfect. I'll watch it back later over dinner, I expect. Shout out to my partner Hannah, and to Geoff for organising the league. It's great to see 30 cars out on track every week on the best car on iRacing.
Oh, I'm with you on that. It's absolutely lovely to see so many skippies week in, week out. And of course, you being one of the many out there. Adam, we'll leave it there. Congratulations on a brilliant set of laps, a pole position and the feature race win. And with it, of course, we will see you at Circuit Zandvoort in a week's time. Until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Adam Miles. And what a day from him today. And talking about there, firstly, the fact that a little bit of frustration with regards to what happened in the sprint race, and we'll explaining the fact that there was a technical issue, and in the end he got it resolved, but in his panic, of course, trying to start the car from neutral, it's never going to quite work, and in the end, well, he got it to go, but the damage had been done, and therefore the sprint race was all about recovery. But to be fair, to recover from the bottom end of the top 15 all the way to 6th, that's no mean feat, particularly at circuit. In his own words, it's difficult to overtake at because there's not many long straights. But then as we went into the feature race, well, now I need to start further up the order. He had planned a little bit differently. He'd already planned to pit early, as we see him dive into the pits in the replay footage, but he decided to go one more lap just to confirm how many laps there would be in the race. But then he was cautious, made sure to take it easy, for the risk of picking up that slowdown, which he mentioned, and indeed, the Rudskogen being a circuit very, very attentive to track limits. But after he committed to about halfway of the race and started to see the way the chips are falling for other drivers on strategy, he knew that win was his. And well, he's missed a couple of rounds, like he mentioned, but he's chasing after Steff Hermann, and at Circuit Zandvoort, he's looking forward to the banking of the curvings there. And will he be able to also look forward to more wins? We'll have to wait and see. But I'll tell you one thing, Adam Miles is definitely going for victory. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, and well, we will be back in approximately 10 seconds or so for our next interviewee. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is to George Mattock we come, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, George. And well, what a day from yourself today. You've had plenty of fun out there and also managed to battle your way into the top 10 in the feature race. I mean, that's my thoughts on it, but what are your thoughts?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, that was good fun. I enjoyed that. I did do the practice session and suddenly got into the track a lot more than I had imagined. But yeah, that was good fun. I mean, the only thing I would say is the feature race was solid. I just put too much fuel in. Last week I needed to push across the line, so I didn't put enough in. This week I went the other way and put too much in, unfortunately. So I wasted like another 5-6 seconds in the box because we were right there with Dennis and I forget who was in second, Christopher, I think. And yeah, just put too much fuel in and ended up behind those guys and then coming out of the pits in the middle of the chaos. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Well, glad he had fun out there, and sorry to hear about the difficulties with the strategy, but we'll dial things back to qualifying firstly. 3-lap averages, and as we've just heard from Adam Miles, this is a circuit where it's very strict on track limits. What was it like knowing you had to do 3 laps, and you weren't allowed to have a cheeky off-track on one of them, otherwise it'd be start from the back?
Yeah, that was brutal. That was really hard. I think I went too cautious. I mean, probably everyone said the same thing, but I knew that if you get 1x or you run wide anyway, you're done. You're going to be at the back, and you don't want to be at the back at this track. You want to be in the mix at the front. If you can stick within 2-3 tenths on a single lap with the front guys, you're going to be in the mix, and you can use the slipstream to your advantage. But quali was intense. I mean, I didn't have a great qualifying. I don't even know where I qualified, but I knew that I just needed to get across the line and make sure that I was in a position to move forwards, and luckily I was able to do that.
Well, you managed to set yourself that time, like you say, to move forward, and going into the sprint race, we saw you right in the thick of the battling for the 20 minutes. But for every time you made a bit of progress, there was also somebody there to try and force you back a little bit. How did it feel out in the sprint?
Yeah, sprint races are always chaos. But I always have one thought in the back of my mind, is that the top 15 going to get reversed, so you need to try and look at your position for the next race as well. But of course, you want to finish in front of the guys around you. But when you're in a train, in a slipstream train, it's, unless you have a massive pace advantage like F1, if you don't have a massive pace advantage, it's quite hard to pass unless someone makes a mistake in front of you. So that was fun. But I prefer the feature race. I mean, the strategy is always hard as well to try and balance your fuel. Still haven't nailed that. Eventually, one day I'll get it right. But yeah, it was a good evening and good fun, and finally finishing in the top 10 is proper consistency is what I'm looking for.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, you definitely have been nipping at the top 10 since we've seen you join the grid, and the fact you've been able to achieve that in the feature race today, I mean, it can only go more upwards from there. So when we do head to Circuit Zandvoort in a week's time, can we expect perhaps 2 top 10s?
I hope so. I mean, I want to be fighting for the wins, but it's been so long since I've raced, and coming back after 3-4 years almost of no racing it's brutal, because everyone's been doing it regularly who's at the front here. But when you have time off, it takes it out of you, the muscle memory, the pace, the strategy with the tires and the fuel and everything. It takes a bit of getting used to, but yeah, top 10s would be nice, but need to be looking a bit more than that, I think. I'm used to being at the front guys and fighting there, so I'll hope at least I'll maintain where I was, if not move forward a little bit.
Well, we look forward to seeing whether you can move forward at Circuit Zandvoort and gradually bring yourself up into what is the upper order of the grid, because definitely there, as you burn off that rust, we can definitely see already how quick you're becoming. But just before we do let you go, George, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
First of all, thank you to you for the broadcast, very kind of you, and thank you to Geoff for running the league, and to everyone in the race who was racing there. It was good fun. Adam gave me a little love tap, but we just spoke about it, so that was nice. But yeah, just shout out to everyone who's competing and everyone watching at home.
Oh, brilliant. Well, George, I can hear it in your voice, the enthusiasm and love for the series. But with that, we will leave it there. Well done today on taking the top 10 in the feature race. Well deserved. And we look forward to seeing you move forward even more in the Netherlands in a week's time. But until then, my friend, have a lovely evening and we'll speak soon. I'm sure of it.
Thanks, mate. See you soon.
So here and there for George Mattock, and you can just feel that enthusiasm. It's infectious, ladies and gents. We're talking there firstly about the fact, again, the challenge of the Rudskogen circuit and really getting to grips with it and the limited time available to get the practice in. And in qualifying, being quite cautious, perhaps overly cautious, and that's why he qualified a bit further down than he anticipated. In his own words there, not knowing where he'd qualified, even with the fact that that 12th place in the end, where it opened up doors for him perhaps to be able to go battling. However, a 12th place start and 11th place finish, and that was a reflection really of the fact how close the battling was and how tight the field was and the limitations of Rudskogen. But in the feature, he would not be dissuaded, because he also mentioned the one thing about the sprint is finishing outside the top 10 but inside the top 15 always opens up a great starting position for the feature. He knew it and he went for it, And the only thing that let him down was a little bit too much fuel in the car. Him and the team need to get on those fuel strategies, and if they can, I think George Mattock will definitely be back in the top 5 within the next few rounds, ladies and gentlemen. When that happens, I'm sure we'll get the inside scoop with him in the interview room, and we'll love to hear him being absolutely more jubilant when he comes to being his first top 5 of the season. But with that, we've got more drivers to speak to, and we will be back very shortly for our third interview of the night. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the man from the US of A. It is none other than Brian Kelly, who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Brian. And well, what a day for yourself. 6th in qualifying, 4th in the sprint, 6th for the feature. There was a chance of a podium in both races as well, but you're getting closer and closer to regular podium finishes. How was it out there?
Yeah, this was one where qualifying a little bit better would have gone a long way. There's a very difficult track to get overtakes in. So yeah, a little left on the table there for qualifying. The sprint race, I felt like it was okay. I think if I could have gotten a little bit more aggressive and overtook Geoff a little earlier, we might have been able to keep the draft. But still happy with where I finished in the heat. And then feature race, that was pretty stressful. There's a lot of chaos in that one, a lot of crashes early on, a lot of spins. So that one was really, I was trying to keep as clean as possible, and it worked out okay for me. I stayed clean. I wish I could have been a little bit further up, but I'm happy with how I finished.
Well, it's good to hear you're happy with how you finished. And we'll talk a little bit about the start of the feature race and where you found yourself in that, because I think you're one of the drivers who decided to make a bit of a rallycross trip of turn number 2. But qualifying, starting 6th in the end, 3-lap average this time out. How did you feel with the format? Because this is now the second time we've run it after what was Brands Hatch at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think the average is an interesting way to do qualifying. I feel like I struggled to get up to speed as quickly as some of the other drivers that finish ahead of me. So yeah, I think just on cold tires, I need to practice a bit more, make sure I get up to pace a little faster in the future if we do have this format again.
All fair play. Well, a bit of familiarity, a bit of practice. We've got other instances here, of course, but much later on in the season, if my memory serves me correctly. But let's talk about the important parts. The sprint race, firstly. We saw you in the early stage of the sprint absolutely going all in and trying to chase down that podium. But for all the progress you could make, there was also a little bit of regress. How was it out there? Because we heard Adam Miles earlier say how difficult this circuit is to overtake at.
Yeah, it really is. I think early on in the heat race, I noticed in that final corner, I seemed like I was losing time, and that was probably the worst one to lose time on, because I would say the best overtaking opportunity would be into that chicane, that turn 1 chicane. So eventually I think I got a little bit better, and I made some, I want to say I overtook Geoff late in that heat race in that turn 1. So happy I made that pass, got a little bit more points. I was really happy that I had a 0 incident race in that heat. So that's a few more bonus points, which I think are going to add up at the end of the season.
Oh, indeed, those bonus points, they always go under the radar until we get to the last couple of race weekends, and suddenly they become so important. But well done on earning those and coming into the feature race. Obviously, starting further down the order, you would have started in 12th place, if my mental maths is correct. Whole field goes into turns 1 and 2. The front row decides to have a bit of an altercation at turn number 2, and suddenly the field fans out. Where are you in all of that?
I want to say I was watching, it was Geoff, Adam, and Dennis go 3 wide into the chicane, and I was worried. I was not sure how that was going to end up. I kind of figured there was going to be some carnage. I think I got a little too close to Adam and got worried. Then I heard people crashing around me, so I went as wide as possible to try to avoid it. I think I got a slowdown, but I was going so slow anyway. I don't think I needed to change anything. But yeah, I think what really was a big mistake for me was I want to say lap 2. Geoff went on the inside of me on that very fast downhill right-hand corner, and I spun, lost control of the car. Thankfully, I didn't lose too much time there, but yeah, I might have been able to stay closer to Steff throughout that race, but overall, again, I'm happy with how I recovered. I'm happy how the finish went in that race.
Well, indeed, it was a good recovery, and whilst it may not have been, say, the highs of the win at Oulton Park last week in the feature, the fact that you're able to recover to 6th place really is a sign of just how strong your championship campaign is going. So with that in mind, of course, next time out we head to the Netherlands for Circuit Zandvoort. What are your chances there, in your opinion?
I really like that track. I think it's going to be another challenging one. For sure. I think there's some places where people might be able to throw a move. And again, I think it's really going to come down to racecraft, trying to make your overtakes without losing, minimizing the time lost going too wide. But yeah, I really love Zandvoort. I'm hopeful for that track. I've had some decent pace in the past, so yeah, I'm looking forward to next week for sure.
Oh, fantastic. We look forward to seeing you take the fight once again and see if you can creep at least back onto the podium, if not take another win. But Brian, just as we get ready to let you go, just as always, a quick question of, is there anyone you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch the broadcast back. So thank you for doing that. That's a huge plus to any league. And then yeah, just thanks again to the admin that run this league. I think it's a really well put together league where, people are kept honest by the penalties, and I think that's really important when people are learning, just to be honest with when people make mistakes. But then, yeah, I just want to shout out to my wife for letting me take most of my Sunday and spend it practicing and racing. So, yeah, that's all from me.
Oh, well, fantastic, Brian. We will leave it there. And also a big thank you to Mrs. Kelly, if she's watching or listening, for letting you put the practice in and deliver some absolutely superb racing. Great results today. May not have been the win you wanted, but still, more rounds to come, and we will see you at Circuit Zandvoort, where you might just become #1 once again. But until then, Brian, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there from Brian Kelly, ladies and gentlemen, and you can feel it a little bit perhaps disappointed today compared to the highs of last time out. However, the priority also saw things in perspective and was very pleased with his recovery drive in the feature race, recovering to that 6th place finish afterwards that spin. But also realising the fact that in the sprint race, despite the madness and how close the racing was, he was able to keep it nice and clean and avoid any mistakes or incidents, and was able to pick up some bonus points as well. And really talking about the fact that those bonus points are going to become more and more valuable as the season goes on, and he's not wrong. They're always the points that nobody thinks about, and then suddenly at the end of the season, one or two of them can be the difference between you finish in position A or position B, or sometimes that can mean the difference between becoming champion or being the runner-up. So for Brian Kelly, he's moving forward, he's learning as he goes as well, and also enjoying the fact the league definitely opens up the opportunities for plenty of learning opportunities, even for some of the faster drivers out there. And well, with his speed at Circuit Zandvoort, I think we're going to see him challenging for the win once again there. But of course, we've got a week to go and plenty of practice as well, and he'll be looking to get that practice in. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come this evening. Who's it going to be with? We'll find out very shortly when we come back. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview of the evening, joining me in the interview room right now is Nathan Wade. Good evening to you, Nathan. And well, understandably, this interview is going to feel a little bit bittersweet because it started off well, it got even better, and then it all came to an abrupt halt in the feature race. I mean, the first question, of course, is for the viewers at home. What happened in the feature?
Hi, Paul. To be fair, I'm kind of glad it happened on a race like the feature. So I had a good start. Thought I'd avoided the first incident, and then I just got clipped by a spinning car, which I couldn't really avoid in turn one. So then I was just sort of making my way up. But that whole feature was an absolute sort of fight with every single car I found. And then I think it was lap 14. Yeah, the wheel just it just completely died. I had the old Windows 11 like disconnect USB sound in my ear, and yeah, I could not get it back on. It just locked me up right in the middle of the track. Tried to avoid everyone by towing back to the pits as quick as possible, but yeah, it's just completely died, which is unfortunate. But I'm glad it happened on a race where, you know, instead of the sprint where I was in P3, because I think I'd have been a little bit more annoyed at that. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna struggle to get a wheel sorted for next week now.
Well, it's very unfortunate, and I extend, much like many who'll be listening and hearing that right now, my condolences, and, well, I'm very sorry to hear that, and hopefully you can get it sorted for in the weeks to come, because it's not quite the same grid if we don't have our purple star of yourself out there. But, talking about some positives, perhaps, qualifying. 5th place overall, may not have been pole position, but given this was a 3-lap average session, and Rudskogen is so aggressive on its track limits, you must have been pleased with that.
Yeah, definitely. I was happy with quali. I could have definitely pushed a bit more, but because of the whole 3 average, you just, you know, if it's a single lap and you've got 3 laps to do it, you're careful on your first 2, and then you absolutely go full send on the last. But those first 2 laps, especially turn 4, I believe, the bottom of the hill, that is such a sketchy corner. So you just have to be really cautious not to lose the back end. And the same as going up that hill as well, you can just get the track limits on the inside. So I'm happy I got my quali in, and to get P5, I was happy because I knew I had good pace here this week, so I knew I could do something in the sprint.
Well, with that qualifying, like you say, knowing you can do something in the sprint, and my goodness, did you do something, chasing down and eventually securing that podium. But from your perspective, I mean, Rudskogen, not an easy circuit to battle at, but you found some very inventive ways to fight your way through and hold on to that 3rd place at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I managed to get. I can't remember who was in front of me now. I think it was Geoff at the start. Those first few laps, I've never done a race here. I literally picked up this track 3 days ago, so I've only done a little bit of practice. And I sort of, as I gridded up, I was like, I've got no idea where the sort of overtaking spots are. I'm just going to have to improvise, do whatever. So I managed to get a nice run down into turn 4 on Geoff. And just, you know, and I trust Geoff. He's a good racer, so I knew he's not going to do anything stupid. Managed to get past him down at that, and then it was just a case of trying to keep up with the leaders. There was about a second, and unfortunately, I couldn't really do anything towards the end of the race. I just managed to reel them in, but trying to make a move. I didn't want to do anything stupid, so I was like, you know, I'll sit in 3rd. If I have an incident, I might be able to make a move on them both, but. Yes, it's a very, very difficult track to overtake, but it's very enjoyable to drive.
Oh, indeed, and it shines through in the way you're describing it there. And in the end, playing it smart and consolidating the 3rd place. We talked, of course, only moments ago about the feature and what all went wrong there. So not really too much to talk about now with regards to perhaps the final race of the day, but let's talk about what's ahead. Now, presumably, you may not be on the grid for Circuit Zandvoort, but if you could come back for a particular round or set of rounds that are to come, when do you want to be back by? Or it's sort of, I can't miss this particular track?
I don't have any sort of plans of which ones I definitely want to do. I mean, I want to be back next week. I want to be racing. I really enjoy it. I'm getting a little bit back in the groove now as well. Zandvoort's a very sort of drafty track as well, so I think it'll create a lot of carnage next week, especially with it being open quali. So I do want to get back in. I'm already looking at wheels and everything, so that's what I spent the last 20 minutes doing, to be fair. So I'm trying to get it sorted, and I do plan on hopefully being back next week. I just can't make any promises, unfortunately.
Well, that's absolutely fair. And well, fingers crossed. I think everyone's going to be rooting for you to be back on the grid for Circuit Zandvoort. And if so, just seeing you on the grid is going to be a huge achievement, regardless of where you finish. But with that, Nathan, just as we get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast tonight?
just yourself as always for running this broadcast. It's always great fun to watch back. Maybe I won't enjoy seeing me DNF in the feature, but other than that, yeah, it's always a great watch on the Monday. Geoff running the league as always, and then just everyone else in that sort of front pack today. The driving's been good, and throughout the field as well, there's been some good battling on the comeback in the feature race.
Well, Nathan, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you join me in the interview room. We'll leave it there. And, well, fingers crossed we'll see you on the grid at Circuit Zandvoort. But if not, I'm sure we'll see you sooner rather than later. But until then, my friend, good luck with the wheel shopping and have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Nathan Wade. And, well, what a way for it to go wrong, with regards to, in the end, having his wheel disconnect from him and essentially stop working in the feature. And, well, thankfully, like you said, it happened in a race where it already gone wrong to a degree, so therefore he'd lost out less compared to if it was in a race where he was, say, in third place, such as in the sprint. But you never want it to happen, regardless of what race you're in, and in the end, well, he's already actually looking for a replacement, and, well, I get the feeling, ladies and gentlemen, I've got my fingers and toes crossed, we're going to see Nathan Wade back on the grid at Circuit Zandvoort. Even if it's in a limited guide, we'll see him there, and if so, well, that's going to be an achievement. But talking about his night, well, of course, qualifying, knowing that he went a little bit light when he could have perhaps been a bit more aggressive, but you never want to risk it with those 3-lap average qualifying sessions. And then going into the sprint, despite the fact that the Rudskogen circuit's such a challenging circuit to overtake at, he found himself in some good spots and indeed enjoyed going battling and had a lot of respect to his rivals up and down the order. And as he mentioned there, even enjoyed in the feature race, but things didn't go right at the start when he got collected in the turn 2 instant. Still enjoyed fighting his way out through, as we've seen some footage of him fighting with the likes of Klaus Biedermann and also Frankie D. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude our interviews there. And a huge thank you to all 4 of our interviews this evening, of which we've heard from Adam Miles, firstly, your feature race winner, after that superb strategy brought him on through. Indeed, that brilliant pole position in qualifying as well. We also heard from George Mattock, who secured his first top 10, and he continues to move forwards. And then we heard from Brian Kelly, the privateer, who enjoyed himself, but perhaps felt a little bit down compared to where he perhaps wanted to be today after the highs of Oulton Park. And we just heard from the non-finisher in the feature, but your podium finisher in the sprint, of Nathan Wade. Thank you to all 4 of them for joining me in the interview room. More interviews to come as the season goes on, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we hope they all have a great rest of their evening, and well done to them all on their results. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there wanting to know more or wanting to be on the grid to compete in the Skip Barber Community Trophy, whether you are a rookie to the car and it will be your first time out in it, all the way through to being a professional who's raced in it for years, we've got a whole variety of skill levels here in the community, ladies and gentlemen, because indeed, many of our drivers live and breathe the Skippy. For all that and more, we definitely recommend you join our official Discord, invite link available on screen, and there, once you join, say hello, say you want to be part of the community, and you will be in very safe hands, that I can assure you. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsors, who firstly include Musical Money, and Musical Money is the quick, easy and safe way to turn your unwanted musical equipment into money. No matter what your equipment may be, if you want to sell it, Musical Money is there to buy it, thereby taking the hassle out of your selling of unwanted musical equipment. And with their groundbreaking website as shown on screen, selling your musical equipment could not be easier for a website which has put the user experience at the core of its design. So why not check out the website of www.musical-money.co.uk today to find out more, and perhaps you can be to the tune of plenty more money in your pocket for your unwanted musical equipment. We'd also like to say a big thank you to the Old Git Racing Team. Established in 2024, the Old Git Racing Team aims to prove that age is just a number in the world of racing. Headed by Geoff Randall, the team races in multiple disciplines, but is especially dedicated to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 machine, or the Skippy. Regardless of the car, however, they aim to keep their racing fair and close, whilst also respecting the fact that mistakes can happen even to the very best. If you'd like to know more about the team, be sure to head to their Twitch channel shown on screen. That's at twitch.tv/OldGitRacer, where you can check out their racing, including their onboard perspectives from the Skip Barber Community Trophy. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, a big thank you to our sponsors, a big thank you to all of our competitors this week, and we now look ahead to next week, of course, and in a week's time, well, for rounds 9 and 10 on Sunday, the 18th of January 2026, we continue to stay in the mainland of Europe for just a little bit longer, and we make our way to the Netherlands for Circuit Zandvoort. And since it's repaving for Formula 1 in the early 2020s, what was once a circuit absolutely loved by competitors around the world has become a circuit right now that many will go there just for a track day, if not for the right to go racing. With all its cambered corners and its regular direction changes, Circuit Zandvoort is a very easy circuit to learn, but a difficult one to tame and conquer. But who in our Skippy series will be the ones to conquer it in a week's time? Well, you have to tune out then to find out how the story continues. But until then, we have been the Skip Barber Community Trophy. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. This has been a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.